Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round number 10 of the ASR Development Series for season 2024. And after all the banged up race cars and the carnage and all the things that happened across the Pacific Ocean, right on the other side, on the streets of Long Beach, California, we've returned to home soil, and it's time to get back into a more traditional form of motor racing. This is the Sandown 125. This is the precursor for a lot of drivers that flows into the Sandown 500 Enduro Cup race in a couple of weeks' time, which sadly won't be broadcast this year. If you remember back to last year, it was a case of the Dev Series ran on the Friday night, and Saturday, Sunday, it was the Endurance Cup part of the Supercars series last year that saw a lot of drivers do double duty, and in a lot of cases, running triple duty across 3 nights worth of racing. It's a little bit different tonight, where it's the supercar drivers are taking a back seat. They're watching on and watching all the development series drivers go round and looking forward to racing against some of them in a couple of weeks' time for 161 laps of this venue. But tonight, it's just 41. And opposite myself, Steve DeVries, in the commentary box, it is Will Devonish. So, Will, great to have you on board again. You missed the last round because Lockie Locks decided to step in, and it was a bit of a baptism of fire for him that weekend at Long Beach with the carnage that ensued. But you're back aboard for a more traditional affair and a circuit that you've had your mixed results here in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'm looking forward to tonight. It's both our home tracks, but as you said, yeah, some mixed fortunes, but probably fondest memories, first supercar win here. So yeah, happy to commentate tonight, and it should be good. Some good racing.
We'll talk about your first win, because it was some time ago, wasn't it? Like you've been around the series for some time. You came in 2018. When did you get your first win around Sandown? Because it was quite a while ago. I'm thinking it's got to go back to 2019, probably at the earliest.
It was the first year when the group was AMS Oz, and Sandown was a 250 back then.
So it would have been 2018 then?
Yes.
Yep, so one of the very first win. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. And then, yeah, followed it up the next year and got the win here again. And then it's been a bit unlucky since then. So hopefully the Enduro Cup this year will be a bit better for us.
Yeah, well, we hope so. There's about 17 teams going to take part in the Enduro Cup this year. So that comes up in a couple of weeks' time. But as we said, tonight, just the development series field at the moment, looking like there's about 26 or so drivers that are going to take to the track for the 41 laps in store. So if we have a look at what the track has in store for us tonight, there it is there. You're very familiar with it. It's a staple of the motor racing scene here in Australia since its inception in the 1960s. So it's been through the Silver Jubilee or the Diamond Jubilee, whatever it was, a couple of years ago. Actually, it wasn't too long ago. I think it was just after COVID is when it chalked up 60 years of action here in Springvale in Victoria. Couple of what we call inconsequential corners, which means they effectively are there, but they're not really proper corners. So you take a look, for example, turn 5 is probably the most obvious of them, coming out of the first sector and then driving up the hill. That is a bit of a turn there. It's not one that you have to negotiate at any great, bit of attention span, but you do have to just pick your line, stick to it, keep your foot to the floor and keep going. Same with turn 13. It's pretty much a bend in the front straight just as you come past the pit entrance. And again, foot flat to the floor, no real effort required. The one that sort of gets my eye here, Will, is the fact that they call the little kink, and I do mean it, it is a little kink in the chute between Dandenong Road and the last chicane. They call that a turn, and I personally wouldn't call that a turn.
Yeah, maybe if there wasn't a hump in the road, they might not call it a turn. But as you said, there's a lot of inconsequential corners of the track. There's even a whole sector that isn't really much of a sector. That second sector is just back straight, so everyone gets about the same time down that straight.
Yeah, that whole sector time is purely determined by how you get off turn 4. So if you get a good run out of turn 4, you get a good top speed, you're getting up towards 265, 270 kilometres an hour before you hit the braking zone for turn 6. If you get a poor run off, you're about 5 or 6 Ks too slow. But you're right, it's it's basically a nothing sector. It's one of very few racetracks in the world where we've seen a sector that looks like that. There's certainly nothing else in this country that looks like that in terms of a sector. So we've got 41 laps in store for tonight, which is a 125 kilometre distance, and there is a top 10 shootout tonight as well. So you'll see all the drivers out on track for the 10-minute qualifying session. Then we'll pause. Then we'll go round again with just the top 10 drivers in reverse order. That'll then set the top 10 for the race that follows on afterwards, with the positions 11 through to 20 having been sorted in the qualifying session. Then bolt on the top 10, and then away we go. So very much getting into that spirit of endurance season. Just the one race tonight. Usually there's 2 or 3 in most of the rounds. Just one tonight, and then for Bathurst in a handful of weeks' time, which I think it's in about the 2nd or 3rd week of October. That is also going to be a single race event. Everything else this year, 2 or 3 races, depending on the type of track that it is. So there's still 4 rounds, including tonight, left in the season, Will. So Sandown and Bathurst, the 2 sort of ones that everybody wants to win because they are the unique ones with the longer distance and the single distance races. Taupo, which is scheduled to be a triple header round, so that's going to introduce the reverse grid component, again, like it has been a couple of times this year at Winton and the Bend, where we do take the top half of the field after race 1 and we flip it around and put some guys at the front that normally aren't at the front of the field. And then they have the 3rd race, which is the progressive grid results. So a little bit of interest there. And then we get to the final round of the year, which actually I think I've just double-checked the calendar, because I'm pretty sure that the final round of the calendar at Adelaide for the development series is might be a single race compared to the supercars, which is a dual race. And it looks like that's the case as well. So I do apologise. There is another single race round to go, which is Adelaide. So again, one that drivers look forward to because it's a circuit that's been familiar to everybody, and it's been on the calendar every year of the season. So put those 4 in a hat. Which one would you want to draw out? Which one of those 4 tracks?
Oh,
It's a hard choice.
Yeah, so we tried Tapor the other night, and that is a complete. It's a track that we've never sort of raced in with these cars, so it is a completely different challenge. You got to love Bathurst for just being Bathurst. But yeah, I guess my soft spot's Adelaide. It's a track that if you get it right, it feels great. And there's a lot of overtaking opportunities there. The tracks we've got Sandown, Bathurst, and Tapor. I think the overtaking is going to be a bit limited, but that last race, it should make for a lot of good racing.
Yeah, I agree. I would struggle to pick a winner out of those ones. I would probably suggest, for me, it's probably Sandown, and that's purely just because of the history around the circuit. Yes, Bathurst has got the history as well, but even though I'm a fan of the track, I've sort of have always struggled in my limited, sim racing time. I've always struggled around Bathurst, and I just could never gel with the track. Sandown, yes, it's a simple circuit, but the racing can be really, really good. There are plenty of overtaking opportunities, and the opportunity to play a little bit of chicken with somebody going into some of the heavy braking zones as well. Can you outbrake your opponent? If you do, you look like a hero. If you don't, you go to 0. I like that sort of aspect of this circuit. Adelaide, again, it's a very, it is a very punishing circuit. And Taupo, from the running that we have done so far and the testing we have done so far, you're right. The kind of circuit that it is will reward some patience. There's very limited opportunities for drivers to overtake. But that being said, it will be an interesting decision to see, what types of racing drivers elect to go with, because the rumour floating around, it's not confirmed just yet, is it will be a soft tyre round. And some drivers might try and push the soft tyre a little bit too hard. And in both series, in both the development series and the supercar series, it will be borderline as to whether or not you can actually get a set of softs home. And if you do, how much meat you have on them at the end of the day. So it'll be really good to see how all of that comes to be. And when we talk about those sorts of things, well, it's probably good we have a look at the championship standings coming into the picture too, because this is probably the most crucial time of the year, isn't it? With 300 points on the line in a single race, whereas before we've got, if it's a 2-race round, we've got 150 points per race, and you've got time to recover. If it's a 3-race night, you've got 100 points as a win for a win in each race. Again, you've got some time to recover and get a decent haul of points. But tonight, and for Bathurst coming up in a handful of weeks, if you have a bad night, it could really hurt your championship. It could really swing it a different direction for you.
Yeah, and this year, out of all the years we've had Dev Series, it's the tightest I've seen it towards the end of the season. Even in our supercars this year, that it started to spread out a bit, but Dev Series, everyone's right on top of each other with points, so it's really anyone's game at the moment.
Well, it certainly is. So let's have a look at how it stands right now. So since the end of round number 8, which was the Gold Coast round. So 2 rounds ago, Luke Speck has led the championship. And for the most of the year, it has been Brandon Dostal out in front. Now, the one thing to remember, as you rightly pointed out, when you look at all the drivers sitting on top of each other here, so you've got Callaghan, Burko, Green, all very, very close together. You look at down the bottom there, Lognan and Kane Gray, like there's a point separating them. The drop round is yet to be factored into the point standings. It was something that was introduced last year to, people do have lives, so we allow people to, miss a round and then they can drop that round, or if they have a bad night, they can drop that series of points. So when you look at the championship picture as it stands right now, and I'm going to go to our new statistics to bring some of this up, because we look at the drivers that have completed every single race this year, so all 20 races. The championship leader, Luke Speck, has completed all 20. Callaghan, Burko, Knight, who's sitting there in 6th on the order there, and Lognan have all completed all 20 races so far this year. So when you look at what Brandon Dostal's done, he missed 2 rounds. He missed 2 races. He missed the full Gold Coast round. So he is dropping a grand total of 0 points as it sits right now. So his score after a drop round will remain precisely where it is. Whereas for Luke Speck, he's got to drop something. Now, you can't drop a round where you've been disqualified, and you can't drop a round, obviously, that is not going to make any difference in things. Like, you can still drop around if you've had a non-finish and a non-start, which effectively is a 0 points, or you can drop around where you've had 2 non-finishes. You can drop around where you've finished one race and not finished another race. So as long as you've not got a disqualification in a round, you can drop the points associated with that round. And I'm just looking roughly at what Speck's worst round at the moment is, and it looks like to me it's Winton, which is 118 points. So if the season ended today, Brandon Dostal would actually be the champion, because he's dropping nothing, where Speck is dropping 118. So this is where we look at this picture and we start to get very intrigued by who is where, and people start to work out the math, like already in their heads, what their worst round is. A lot of drivers will, I think, probably already know what their worst round is, and they just need to make sure that they bank enough points to better that, so they don't drop anything more, because they won't want to drop too much, too little points. Otherwise, they don't want to drop too many points. Otherwise, they're going to be in a bit of a pickle come, end of season.
Yeah, and you're looking at these points, and as you said before, it's a single race night tonight, 300 points. I'm looking at Ethan Knight here. If the crap absolutely hits the fan for the guys in front of him, he's jumping from 6th to 1st. So it's really tied up the front, and really good to see.
Yeah, I agree. So he's sort of like a little bit of the dark horse there as well. And so too Anthony Green, because he's had a good chunk of the pops this year. He's been up the pointy end of the standings on multiple occasions. And look at our stats here as well in terms of who's had the most amount of wins and the most amount of podiums. He's been quite a consistent podium getter up the front. 5 wins and 2 other podiums outside of that, and then you've got Dostal with just the 1 win and 10 podiums to go along with it. So both those guys have dominated the podium this year. Other drivers with wins, Speck with 4, Dostal with 1, Callaghan and Burko have got a pair each, Green with the 5 as we mentioned, Smith with 2, Ethan Knight's got 1, and then NZ Snipes, Damon McDonald and Reece McGillivray have all got the other wins between them. So it hasn't it's been shared around a little bit at the top, but the guys that have been regular podium winners this year are quite firmly in the top 10 of the standings. Let's go over and have a look at the balance of the 11 through 20, because it's still pretty tight through here as well. So Darren Kemp on 11th. There is the last man who's cracked the century of, or the 1,000-point mark there. Damon McDonald not too far off, so too Steve Warwick, they're not too far away. Angus Brown, he could probably, go pretty close to, going up and over the 1,000-point mark tonight. And then a lot of drivers on that 600-point bracket there as well. So there is plenty to play out. And this is just Super 2, mind you. So there's a fair old way to go in Super 2. Super 3, on the other hand, Will, it's a runaway at victory at the moment for Matt Cecil. It's his title to lose. When you look at that margin there, it is, and he is sitting 12th outright in the overall standings, probably destined for a promotion next year.
Yeah, he really is in the middle of nowhere. Even if no one else rocked up tonight, and it was just Rhodey and Cecil didn't finish, he'd still be up the front. So, yeah, it's really the battle for second at the moment. It's not the battle for first.
Yeah, and for Matt Cecil, he's attended every round this year as well. So when you look at the likes of Rhodey, who's the next best in the standings, he's attended every round as well. It just goes to speak the volumes. You have a look at what the averaging finishing point for Rhodey is, 19.5 average finish position for him across the 20 races this year. Cecil is a full 4 positions better every single race. That adds up, and that is a lot. 4 times 20 races, and the amount of points deficit that's in there, it's a good 30-40 points a night. So no wonder he is in front to the tune that he is. That's also factoring, and there's been a couple of non-finishers in there for Rhodey as well. I'm just having a bit of a look just to see. I think Matt Cecil's got only 3 non-finishers on the season, and they were both at the start of the year, and then the last one was the last race out at Long Beach. So there was a fair old time between non-finishers throughout the season for Cecil. But then you look at Rhodey down there, he didn't finish either of the Long Beach races, he didn't finish either of the Barbagallo races. So that and they're in critical rounds as well. They were only 2 race rounds throughout the season where he didn't finish both of them on the same night. So that stings when you don't have a chance to notch up some points in a given round, and you don't score any points at all. That really hurts your championship.
Yeah, and look, in the last 12 months, Cecil's doing his own in real life racing, and obviously that's paying off in the sim. But I think also throughout the season, Cecil's been willing to take a few gambles with strategy, where Rhodey's been taking the more traditional strategies, and it's really paying off for Cecil.
Yeah, certainly agree with that one too. And the racecraft, I think, is the important thing as well. Might not qualify all that well, but has done very, very well in racecraft and just kept his nose out of clean. Where everybody's tripped over themselves, he's been the one that has, far and above most of the time, just kept himself out of trouble, kept his car in good shape, and has, picked up a chunk of points to go along with it. So, props to him. He's done very, very well this year, but there's still 4 rounds of the season to go, still a drop round to factor in, and all to play for. Very much a case for Cecil of his championship to lose. On the Super 2 front, everything to play for. Very much a wide open field. Probably one of the tightest championship races we've had in any of the series for some time.
Yeah, 100%. Really looking forward to the finishing of the season. I think it's going to make for some great racing.
I think you're right. Well, let's get started because it is time to go into qualifying, and it's a big traffic jam already. And I can't see who's, I think it's Ethan Knight who might be at the head of the field here, who's managed to beat them out. So a lot of this comes down, of course, to where everybody is in pit lane. And how frequently people can get out. You can see that there they are. Look, that's probably the best angle of the log jam. Everybody competing for that track position to try and get out. There's only 10 minutes, as we keep saying. Only 10 minutes on the clock in qualifying for any of these races. So there's a big emphasis on getting out, getting your first laps in, and then getting out onto the track. Then getting in, getting another set of tyres on and going again. So there's always a bit of a race to get this done. Now, of course, when we get to Bathurst, that's the longest outlap of the year. A lot of people will, you and I both know this, a lot of people were worried about Long Beach considering how long the pit lane was, and people were worried about getting out on time, but they still managed to get plenty of laps in. Bathurst is a little bit of a different case. You've got a 2-minute outlap as opposed to like a minute and 20 seconds, so you do lose a lot of bit of time, and that's typically why ASR tends to increase the qualifying time, especially for Bathurst, from 10 to 15 minutes usually.
Yeah, if it was 10 minutes, you'd get maybe 3 flying laps, and that's about it. Which, funny enough, we used to do in supercars. We'd have the 2 flying laps, and that would be it. So, yeah, might be something we could look at next year again.
No, you're possibly right. So here we go, flying laps underway already. So I'm looking out there to see who's out there on the track at the moment. Now, live timing is giving us a little bit of grief tonight, so we are going to be relying on a few other things to see what's there. 26 runners is what we have at the moment. So, and this is the problem, right? So these drivers are all on outlap, or either all on flying laps. So legally, they don't have to get out the way. And for Green, who we're following at the moment, this is a little bit of an issue for him. He's come across a slower Mark Davey in the first sector, which is a crucial part of the track because you need to be able to flow the car and get through the turn 2 and 3 chicane as nicely as possible, and this will hurt his performance up the back here, having to overtake the car. So again, timing very much a consideration, and he cuts at the back of the curb there a little bit, but timing of when you start your lap with the traffic around you very much needs to be given consideration here, because it's only a 3-kilometre track, so there's not a lot of wiggle room for 26 cars.
Yeah, because everything's straight, it'd be interesting to see if there's any teamwork involved here. You can make up pretty much half a second if you get the slipstream, so it'd be interesting if anyone takes advantage of that.
9.2 for Green on that flying lap, 8.8 for McDonald. So again, another driver that was hampered a little bit by some traffic.
7.9 from Smith?
7.9 from Ryan Smith. A 7.991 from Ryan Smith. So on the ball fairly early. And I reckon he got a bit of help there. I reckon he got a bit of a tow from Ethan Knight along the way as well. So
100%.
Absolutely flying is the Hooters machine tonight. And that's a good quarter of a second quicker than Dostal. So it didn't have it all his own way there. So Dostal still put a reasonably good lap in. And he's fractionally up. This is where you don't gain a lot of time through here if you get a good run off turn 4. And with Dostal having the slipstream here, this will be a bit of a challenge. So Davey pulls out, so good decision there. And look at that, he made a huge gain up the back chute and is now eyeing off going to the top of the tree here. He has got a driver on a bit of a fast lap as Davey finds the sand. Now Callaghan gets out of the way there, so gets out of the way there pretty smartly, so that's not going to be too inconvenient for Dostal. Can he drive it to the line here? What does the clock say? It'll be in the 7s. And it's a 7.985. He lost a lot of time in that last sector, so he goes to the top by 6 1/1000ths of a second.
What I'm really impressed with here, Steve, is 2 years ago these would have been top times for the main game. So these guys are absolutely flying.
They are absolutely pounding it in, and a number of drivers already coming to the end of their 2-lap run, and then they're going to have a drop back to the pits and change some tyres. There's Palfrey who's 13th there. I think that might be Green who's just coming back out of the pits after just dropping in to get some tyres. Whoa, there's been a bit of a moment for Ben Hall there. Yep, at the curb cam. The curb cam had a big capture of that, so we're going to have a bit of a look on the replay here for the paint doctor, and let's have a look at that, because we just cut to him almost at the perfect opportunity, and this was that little gaggle of cars that was just ahead of Palfrey that we were following, so this will be interesting to see here. Oh, you don't go 3 wide, it becomes 2 wide, and then the curb cam caught this shot. Watch this.
Has it been rear-ended?
Hello.
He's been rear-ended, I think.
I don't know if he's been rear-ended or not. I think he lost the rear end going through there. He was a bit all on his own.
Interested with that Nissan. I think there might have been some contact maybe in the braking zone.
I'm not sure. Well, if you report something, you report something. That's the interesting part there. But yes, the curb cam caught a rather nice shot there of a very sideways car, number 22. So he's one of a handful of drivers yet to set a time. Ben Hall and Glenn Miles, the only 2 drivers that haven't started or haven't put a time on the board as yet. Go off to see, look at some of the Super 3 runners at the moment. This is Adam Kerrison in the 134 machines, currently in 20th. And improves the time, it does not improve the place. So 20th for him. I'm just looking through the order, just trying to find who the top man in Super 3 is at the moment. Looks like it will be Matt Cecil, who's currently sitting in 16th.
Yeah, Rhodey's very much down the order at the moment. He's been a lot faster in practice, so I don't know if he's putting the sandbags in or what's happening with him at the moment.
I don't know, but whatever it was, Cecil's just come across Mark Davey there, going through the, coming down into Dandenong Road. But yes, you're right, Rhodey has been a little bit quicker in the practice and throughout the course of the week. He was a bit busy trash talking with Ben Hall in the lead up to tonight, so wondering if that's where some of his pace has gone. But he'll,
don't blame him for that.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't blame him for it either, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So drivers that are sitting in an interesting position at the moment in terms of the top 10 for the shootout to follow. Hayden Cupid, 5th place for him. So he's actually on a nice little bit of run of form because he had a pretty reasonable run at the Long Beach, if memory serves me correctly. He didn't do too badly at all.
He's found a lot of pace the second half this season. It's really impressive to see.
After having a couple of rounds off as well for his own personal reasons, he's actually come back with a pretty decent vengeance. He's actually found his rhythm quite quickly, and he got a track cut on that particular tour there. But he will go again, so he's not doing too badly. Likewise, I'm looking at someone who hasn't been in the top 10 for quite some time, who's eyeing off a good, potentially top 10 shooter here, and that's Steve Warwick.
Yeah, and looking at his fantastic livery, he's making, he's doing it proud.
He certainly is. A livery that has graced this circuit many times before. Him and Mitchell Allison, I think they had some cars, I think, built for this one. I don't think Steele Allison's going to be racing tonight, at least not from my indication. But for Warwick, if he's just been gazumped, he's just been pushed down to 9th, and I'm just trying to work out who jumped above him, and it might have been Alex Kiddis moving up to 6th, so that puts Warwick down to 9th. Peter Thrower, so he's another driver that has just jumped in for NZ Snipes, so he's Super 2 eligible and has missed a few rounds in main game this year. He's been doing a little bit of his own racing in real life, which he's absolutely enjoying, and he's taken the Beyond Team Tanifer Commodore into the top 10, and again, a circuit he seems to be gelling well with.
Yeah, and speaking with his real life racing, he's actually got a little ASR logo on his car, which is it's awesome to see.
Yeah, nice little tribute there, which is it's great to see for Pete. A couple of drivers that are on the outside looking into the shootout at the minute. Daryl Callaghan's one of them, and he's just been pushed down by Palfrey, who's just gone to 10th. So Palfrey's just knocked Thrower down to 11th. So hopefully for Thrower timing his run to the line now, he'll probably get 2 more laps. But Callaghan's on the outside looking in. Likewise, somebody that I would have expected to be a little bit further towards the top 10 is Steve Burko. So he's on a lap now as well, having just exited turn 4. And that's a pretty handy sector 1 time. He's on his way up the back straight at the moment. Now we look at the times, and the top 10 drivers are covered by 9/10 of a second. So for Burko, being 3/10 off at the second sector marker is not a bad thing. If he can, sort of maybe lose a 10th or 2, he'll be in a good position. He had the lock-up.
He's in it. Oh, he's a bit wide here.
Yep, he's a bit. That lock-up sent him wide at Dandenong Road, and that should be okay. There's no traffic's going to impede him here. Specs the next one in the queue ahead of him.
He'll actually get a bit of slipstream here, which might help.
Yeah, and he's going to use all the limits at the final corner as well, and really wring the neck of the PCS Mustang, and he goes to 11th.
Well.
He's
lost a ton in that last sector.
He lost a lot, so I think that lock-up at Dandenong Road was rather costly, so he has no choice. He has to go again. Callaghan's had a little bit of an incident with one of the Nissans. I think that's Melody Smith coming down the hill into Dandenong Road, so his lap might be compromised here, and he might
get another one.
Yeah,
He'll just get another one.
He might be lucky just to get another one here. Clock's counting down, 7, 6. Oh, this will be touch and go for the 06. 1. He just gets another lap. There was milliseconds in that, so he's got to press on here and make this work. Thrower's been shuffled down to 13th, so a few drivers have jumped up in front of him. So Palfrey 10th, Warwick's 9th, and then Lognan had jumped up to 11th. So Lognan's on a lap. He's just a little bit further behind Thrower on the machine as well. Palfrey into the 10. So Palfrey into the 10 at the expense of, Thrower's off the road. Palfrey at the expense of Logden and Ben Hall. So Ben Hall jumped up to 11th. He just misses the 10. This is the next man we're interested in, is Darren Logden and what he can do. Burko went to 13th, so he couldn't make any improvements there either. So a couple of drivers still on laps. Logden.
Oh, he's going to lose a lot of run there.
He lost a bit, got a bit loose out of the final corner and cannot improve on 12th. And the last one is Callaghan. He's had a lock-up at the final couple of sequence of corners, and that will be his session done.
Bailing out.
He bails out. So few drivers couldn't quite make it work for them.
15th for Callaghan. That's a surprise.
That's a big surprise for him, and probably not what he was expecting there. He's coming back to the lane. Wells with 24th on the board there. So there was not a lot of late moving and shaking in the top 10. It was all on the fringes of the top 10. So you had the likes of Thrower and Lockton and Burko, and in the latter stages, Ben Hall trying to get into the top 10, but they miss out. Palfrey scoops them, and Hall misses out by about 45 thousandths of a second on getting into the top 10. So Palfrey was very lucky at the end of the day there. You saw on the left-hand side of your graphic, he was 9/10 off of the provisional pole time, and then Hall was about half a tenth or just under half a tenth behind him, and he misses out on 11th. So that settles 11th through to 26th, and there was at least one driver that did settle lap time, which is Glenn Miles. So he will start from the back alongside Melody Smith, who was the slowest of them all. And there was a fair old discrepancy in terms of some of the times in the latter half. You've got to go all the way up to 17th with Matt Cecil to get anybody that was within 2 seconds of the provisional pole time.
I'm looking at this. 5th to 17th was separated by 0.6, and that's close. 12 spots separated by that much. It's a very tight field at the moment.
Very, very tight there. Who are you looking at there and thinking that should have been, either in the shootout or fractionally within the shootout? I mean, we're both looking at Darryl Callaghan, but I'm sort of thinking, Steve Burko's had a few wins this year, and he probably would like to be a little bit closer to the front.
Yeah, Callaghan has it. He just clearly couldn't put it together. Thrower's got it. Burko, we saw, would have actually probably could have maybe 6th, but that last sector really killed him. And Ben, look, he's had some time away, but yeah, he's pretty quick at the moment, so he'd probably be kicking himself. He's got 11th.
Yep, no, I think so too. Like he'll be pretty upset with himself, and of course he's also had some internet issues. We've been talking to him throughout the night. There's been some drama there. I think he's even on a hot spot, so he's missed a little bit of practice while that's been getting sorted out, and he's had to sort of jump in as quickly as he can and put as many laps in as he can. And look, to get 11th after missing out on a good chunk of practice is not a bad effort, if I'm being honest with you. You're still forward of the mid-pack, so you're probably going to be in that group of cars that ends up, sort of being a bit further in front of the fights and the squabbles that tend to happen in the tight mid-pack, as we've seen over the course of the season so far. So I wouldn't put it all down to doom and gloom there, but yes, the guys that missed the shootout that probably should have been a bit close to the front definitely will be kicking themselves for that one, as we are not too far away from getting the top 10 shootout underway. So this only comes around a couple of times a year. So Sandown and Bathurst are the two that usually end up with the top 10 shootout. Of course, we had one at Hamilton all the way back at round 3 earlier this year. And we had another one at the Gold Coast as well. So, and one more to come for Adelaide. So, of the 13 rounds for the year, 5 shootouts to take into consideration.
Do you remember, Steve? Is it anyone's first shootout that made it tonight?
I'm not 100% sure. I think Palfrey made the shootout earlier in the year. He would be the only one that might spring to mind, because if I look at the top 10 shootout results from Hamilton, which was when Dostal took the pole, we ended up in that shootout. You had Dostal, Speck, Green, Knight, Lognan, NZ Snipes, McGillivray, Cupid, Cheese and Ben Hall. They were the participants in that shootout. And then when we go to Gold Coast, it wasn't quite the same crowd. There were a couple that were similar. So Speck, Burko, Knight, Smith, Lognan, Pole went to Damon McDonnell in that one. Steele Allison, Kai Jones, Alex Kiddis and Nathan Higginson. So they were the ones that made a shootout. So for this year, at least in development series, you're looking at Jacob Palfrey. So it's his first shootout for the season, and I think he's probably the only one so far that's sort of not featured in the top 10 at any point in qualifying. So yes.
Yes, and we're just waiting for Ethan to get back in the server before we progress.
Yep, so that's right. So yeah, we're waiting on one more. Sorry, we just missed that he actually didn't quite make it back in time for as the server was cycled. So he needs to jump back in and be ready to go. Otherwise, you miss out on the opportunity to jump in and conduct your shootout lap.
Now, Steve, have you actually done a lap around Sandown in real life?
I haven't done a lap in real life. It has been a while. I will give you that. But I mean, I think the last time I did a lap around Sandown in real life, like myself, on my own, it would have been sitting as a passenger next door to Will Davison doing a hot lap. After one of the events one year. I think it was about 3 years ago. I think it was, because it was in the old spec Mustang, and actually got to go as a guest of MAN Trucks. So because they were a sponsor for the Shell V-Power racing team at the time, and then after that, I think the last time I went and did a lap around Sandown was when I was sitting next door to Pete Lyons from Revhead's Review, and we went out onto the track and shot a little bit of an intro for improved production back in the day. So yeah, very interesting to go for a run around Sandown. But yes, it has been a while.
Yeah, it is a nice track. They do supercar experiences down there, and was able to do that about 6 years ago. Did 10 laps. In a slightly modified HSV, so yeah, mad fun.
Yep, they do. Track. Yeah, they do have the track day experience. It's the same thing that they do. Like, I think it's at Calder Park with the race driver experience. You can go and pay a bit of money and go around with either with a professional driver, or you can get some coaching and you can go and do it yourself. So yeah, one of those things that I guess a lot of people will miss if Sandown happens to to go. There's still a lot of conjecture in the air about whether Sandown will survive. There's a very big contingent sitting on the Melbourne Racing Committee board at the moment that's pro Sandown, trying to save it, so it doesn't go into the pages of history. But then of course there's the elements within the MRC that are trying to get it converted into some form of a get it converted into some form of a housing development, because they obviously want that money to fund other parts of the MRC. They can go and put money into other results and things like that. So that'll be interesting to see how all of that unfolds over time. Not quite sure, I guess, what to make of that between now and then, but something that will no doubt come up at some point or another in time.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for I think 5 years now, so hopefully it doesn't happen. But if it does, is what it is. There's a lot of land across the road from it. I know there's a lot of dead people in it, but we could use that instead.
Yeah, we certainly could use that instead if we really wanted to. So we've got an opportunity now for a top 10 shootout to get underway here. Just waiting on our first car, but there might be a couple of little issues, and we'll wait and see what's happening here. So we're just getting some word through. There might be a game may have potentially frozen from Palfrey, so that becomes a little bit of a drama. And just going to get some word on what we do then. So yes, so unfortunately for Palfrey, that means that he will start 10th if he's unable to undertake his shootout lap because of a situation like that. The clock does not stop for him. So he unfortunately will look. At the end of the day, we always say this about everybody in ASR. It doesn't matter whether or not you are a driver that you're inside the 10. or you're outside the 10, you give it your all, and if you're the 10th driver in the 10 and you go out first in the shootout, you basically got nothing to lose. So you go out and you throw it all on the line, and the worst case, you get a track cut and you start 10th. In this case, game is frozen and you're going to start 10th.
Yeah. I mean, he'll be frustrated, but I think he'll understand that we just need to keep the night moving.
Yeah, that's right. And look, and I know Palfrey's a professional. He'll understand the rule around. You know what? Yes, there's a limited amount of opportunity to do some restarts on a night like this, but eventually the night has to get moving, and unfortunately, it's come at his expense. So when we look at the top 10 shootout here, so Steve Warwick is the first man out on track. So he qualified 9th. His lap to get into the shootout was a 1:08.766. His ideal lap was only a 7:60, so he was actually pretty close on his delta time overall. So keep an eye out. Let's see how close he can get to the 8:76. A little bit off the apex at turn number 1, but that curb on the inside at 1 is quite vicious. If you attack it at the wrong angle, you do end up potentially rolling the car, as we've seen a few drivers in real life do. The most recent one of those was at the Sandown State Series a couple of weeks ago when Lucy Sidwell rolled her Hyundai Excel at the same turn, and a couple of years ago Abby Wingett did almost exactly the same thing, hitting the inside curb pretty viciously. And the momentum just takes that car up and over and away, and it becomes a bit of a hard thing to get back down onto all 4 wheels to get through turn number 1. So Warwick's made a few mistakes on this lap.
Yeah, nowhere near the apex for turn 6, and he also missed the apex for turn 8. So this last sector is going to be a bit scrappy, which the first sector was good, so it'll hopefully even out a bit for him.
Well, let's see how he goes. So it's now up to an 8 now, and he's going to do a 9.7. So he's about 9/10 off where he was getting into the shootout, I think. Just let me look at that time again. An 8.7 plays a 9.7. So he's actually a second off. So look, not too bad. He did make quite a few mistakes in that lap, but you know what? Again, first man in the shootout, nothing to lose, and he's going to start pretty much where he qualified anyway. So nothing to be frowned upon there. Good job for Steve. And over to Ethan Knight, who currently sits inside the top 10 in the championship. He was only 0.02 of a second quicker than Steve Warwick. So he did an 8.746 to get into this shootout. And here we go. We might go on board for a little bit of a lap here with Ethan Knight. Let's see how he attacks turn number 1. Again, he's quite wide of the apex there, but he's using all the runoff roads, so not getting it pinched down into the corner as neatly as he would have liked to. A little bit upset over the curbs. He didn't get the ideal line through there. But curb turn 4, that's not too bad. It helps the car turn, and it helps you with a good result there. So he's managed to get a better sector together than Warwick, but it still wasn't perfect.
Yeah, Warwick's car stayed in the air for quite a while in turn 2, where Ethan had planted a bit earlier, and he's made turn 6 a lot better.
Yep.
A lot better line, so yeah, I expect him to be miles up.
Yep.
He's really hitting that all the apexes, really concentrating.
Yeah, this second half of the lap looks very, very tidy, and hitting all the apexes, nice flow. Stayed away from the inside curb there at turn 11, so that was an interesting decision. Kept the car on the flat. Haven't seen that happen before. Sometimes you do want to ride that curb a little bit. And he's done an 8.3, so definitely miles better than Warwick, and that's actually miles better than his shootout lap too. So he's really turned it on. He's actually gone 4/10, almost 4/10 quicker than he did to get into the shootout. So that's a major improvement for Knight. Might take some beating there, actually.
Yeah, he'll be really proud of that.
We're definitely very happy with that. But it's now over to the championship leader in the Holden Dealer Team Retro livery, the livery that was on the last of the big bangers back in the day. Luke Speck, car 13. Here we go.
Now, Speck, I expected to be a little further up in qualifying, but we were racing last night, and he's actually got the racecraft for this track more than the qualifying. But yeah, he's missed that first apex. But he's a lot smoother on 2 and 3 there.
Yeah, that's right. Third driver in a row to really have an issue at the apex of turn 1. So drivers pushing the limits a little bit too hard. Clock disagrees. So Knight blistering in Sector 1 at the moment. And as we keep saying, this sector of the racetrack, the run out of 4 all the way up to turn 6, it is a nothing sector. It's all about how quickly you get the drive off, and you can see there he's lost another tenth. So drive off of 4 for Spec was poor. Now he's going to find a way to make all this up. Quite tidy through here, so that's very nice. What does he do at the next corner? Does he do at turn 11? Because we saw that Knight kept it off this corner here. Spec just rides a little bit of it. That's probably not too bad. Good decision there. And through nice and neatly. Shortest path to the line. And he does an 8-8. So he maintained, or he lost a little bit of time in the last sector, but not a huge amount. And as we said, he needed to really pull out all the stops there. And for him, an 8-7 to get in is now an 8-8. So, look, by normal standings, you would say, well done. You've actually done pretty well to get pretty close to your time. But Knight was just so much better. He was 0.4 of a second up on what he did to get in. Yeah,
Knight was a lot more committed down that back section.
Yeah, miles committed. Alrighty, off we go. Alex Kiddis, the Full Throttle Bandits car. He's been marked as a wild card this year because he came in partway through the season, but since coming into the series and picking up this car that was vacated, he's done every round since, so I guess we can consider him a full-time entrant now.
He's the first one to get that first corner and that first flow right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He is. Oh, a bit of a rear locking going into turn number 2. In actual fact, that wasn't too bad. I think it actually helped the car turn. It helped the car turn and pitch nicely for turn 2, so it wasn't all bad news. I mean, yes, the
only a little down.
Only a little bit down. The clock disagrees, but not by much, not by the same extent we've seen from people locking up going into turn 1. So, you know what? That's probably a little bit of a lucky stroke there.
He's lost a tenth on this back sector, so that run out of 4 wasn't as good as we thought it was. And a lock up there is probably not going to help.
Yep, brake bias a little bit too far forward there. Front unweighted corner on the car locking up the inside left, because it is a left-hand bend, so you put all your weight on the right-hand side of the car, and as it's a very tricky braking zone coming down to Dandenong Road, because you don't want to be braking while the car's turning, you need to get the car straight, and an 8-7 for Kiddis. He goes second, and he did an 8-5 to get in. So again, someone that's gone pretty close to replicating their time, but just hasn't been able to get as close or better the mark that the likes of Ethan Knight have done so far. As attention now turns to the one of the Pertec cars that's in the field tonight, and with some Haviline on the side of the car this time as well, with Damon McDonald, retro throwback livery for him this round.
Yeah, throwback to, 2004, Ingle and Ambrose.
Ingle and Ambrose indeed. So here we go. Let's see. We'll get a good angle of the turn 1 camera here. So can he get it in there? He gets it. Little lock up, but gets it in there. So, and that's good apex speed from him through the turns 2 and 3 here. Now he was on a 10.5. Sorry, 10.5. 8.5. 8.501 was what he did to get in. So he's done the first sector in roughly about what Alex Kiddis just did. He had a little bit of a moment exiting turn 4 where the car jumped sideways on him, and that will hurt his run up the back straight here.
Yeah, let's see if he gets the apex. He has lost a tenth out of that, unfortunately, and hopefully he was very close to cutting turn 7 then.
Very, very close indeed, and using all the exit curb there. Short run, just cut that corner a little bit, get really close to the grass because it's an inconsequential corner. Ride that curb a little bit. I'm noticing more and more, Will, the more that these shootout laps go on, people are not really keen on riding that inside curb. Oh, that's a short run to the line. Didn't see that one coming. He got very close to the wall. We saw Matt Cecil hit that wall a couple of years ago. And an 8.7 for McDonald. And for him, that slots him into what's provisionally 3rd place. And another driver that's about a 10th or 2 down on what they did to get in. As attention now goes to the upper echelons of the shootout. So we've got 4 more runners to go. Green was at 8.316 to get in. So here we go for him. Someone who's been up the pointy end of the championship most of the season, top 6 in the standings virtually all season, despite missing a couple of rounds. Into turn 1 we go.
Been really consistent. We noticed the last 3 drivers now pretty much match Knight first two sectors, but then they fall off in the last sector. Knight was really committed there.
Yeah, so Green through the corner here now. If he squares the car up nicely, uses all the runoff here. That's a really good time. So he's matched Ethan Knight through sector 1. Speed building. 220, 230 k's an hour into 6th gear at 240, pulling up the hill here, bumping 260, 265, 266 before he gets on the brakes for turn number 6 and pulls it through nicely. So he hasn't lost a lot through that run up the hill, so there was nothing in it. And Green now under the Penrite Bridge and heading for the final chicane. Been a nice lap so far. What does he do here? He misses the inside curb as well. Now, you notice there, it actually sent him a little bit too far to the left, so he didn't get the turn in that he wanted for the last corner for the run to the straight, and that counted. Look at that. So he lost it in that final chicane. The problem there, we might even go back and have a look at this on the Paint Doctor replay, just so I can bring this up, and you can actually see what he's actually done here. So at this part of the track here, right where he's picked up the curb there, he goes around, and then it sent him too far to the left-hand side of the track here. He couldn't move the car back to the right-hand side of the track to open up the next corner. So that's where, what I was mentioning a few seconds ago, and that's cost him that run to the line.
Yeah, and he turned in a little too early for, turn 11, and that meant that you had to go wide to maintain the speed.
So that's right. So here we go. So he's back in the garage. Off to his teammate, or one of his stablemates, Hayden Cupid. Oh, he's had a big bicycle moment through the chicane there. That's going to be costly from time. Now he's chasing his tail, and he's chasing it to the tune of 0.3 of a second.
Not too bad.
It's not too bad, but it looked very, very awkward and looked very, very unsettled going over the turn 2 and 3 curbs.
Yeah. He should be able to make it up if he gets the apex here. He did exactly the same sector time as Knight for the sector 2.
Well, now it's all down to the third sector here. What can he pull out? Has he learnt the mistake that Green did a few seconds ago, where he didn't get enough purchase on the inside of this turn right here? You need to get the purchase, and you need to stay right like that. You need to stay over to the right-hand side of the circuit and open up that corner. Otherwise, you lose apex speed and you lose the momentum down the front chute. And for Cupid, he goes up with a 8.6. So provisionally third. At best, at worst, he's going to be 5th, because there's only 2 drivers left to go, and the first one of those is Ryan Smith. Now, Smith and Dostal, the last 2 men in the shootout. Dostal, of course, has had a couple of poles, I believe, this year. If I look to the order, he's had 2 poles this season, and so too has Ryan Smith. So out of all the drivers that have had pole positions this year, along with them, you've got Ethan Knight with 2. So he's provisionally sitting on a 3rd pole, but it could go to any of these 2 drivers or Knight right here, right now. So this would break a 3-way deadlock tonight in terms of who has the most amount of poles on the season so far. A little bit of bragging rights on the line here, Will.
Yep, and just remembering in qualifying, Smith and Dostal were the only ones that got a 7, but Smith's been scrappy. Turn 3, he'll be kicking himself. Yeah, 2 tenths down. Yeah,
2 tenths down. Again, he did something very similar to what Cupid did going through the turn 2 and 3 chicane. Car got super, super unsettled, hit it at the wrong angle. That's upset the car. It sent him wide for the exit of turn 3, and he couldn't quite wrestle it back for the turn into 4. You don't lose a huge amount of time coming out of turn 4 up to turn 6. Oh, now he's just losing time hand over fist here, trying to make up the time, getting too greedy, car jumping sideways with too much throttle application. It's starting to go a little bit south for him here for the number 60, and he's going to be in the 8s, I would say. He's going to be 3rd overall. At best, he's going to be 4th. So an 8.6, definitely not happy with that one. Could have been a lot better.
Yeah, looking at how scrappy his last sector was there after turn 6, he actually was pretty on point for Knight's time, so he could have made up some time, quite a bit of time there.
Here we go, last potential roll of the dice here for a change of hands for pole position. Brandon Dostal in the number 76 machine. Gets a nice apex at turn number 1. That looked really, really good. Let's stay on board. Let's have a look how he attacks turn 2, how he attacks turn 3. It's not too bad at all. And then he gets into turn number 4. Good, great view here. What's the clock say? It's a 10.5 away, so it's not insurmountable. It looked smooth, though, so it's looking like it could be, at least at the bare minimum, a front row start for the man who is in second place in the championship.
Looks smooth, but I think turn 2 and 4, he turned in just a little early, and it's washed the speed off on the exit.
And he's wide at the exit of 6 as well, so it narrowed him up for 7. He hasn't quite got all the purchase on the inside at turn 9 either, but he's had a good run out. It's going to come down to these last couple of corners. Does he throw the kitchen sink at it? No, he does what everybody else has done and just use a little bit of the curb. He don't use a lot there in some like years gone past. Only man to get a 7, and he pulls it out of the fire. He pulls it out of the sector. What a great last sector. He pulls it out of nothing and goes to pole by 33 thousandths of a second. And that lap time for him, the last sector time, 27.351, and his teammate 27.57, all in the last sector. And he pulls a pole from nowhere.
Yeah, he's made up 2/10 on Knight there. And I think Knight will have a bit of a, is this the joke sort of moment?
Yeah,
right now.
This will be a case of, are you joking? No, I don't think we're joking. He has beaten the team at pole position by next to nothing. Green inside of a 10th. I'm genuinely surprised at that. How that shootout unfolded, just having a look there at the times. You know, an 8.2, 9.6, then there was an 8.3 and another 8.3. So not much in that at all. Smith and Cupid pretty close together. Kiddis and McDonald pretty close, along with Specs. So championship leaders can start 8th, and then Warwick 9th, with Palfrey starting in 10th. So, well. Bit of a late sting in the tail in the shootout, but that's the thing that everybody likes to see in the shootout, isn't it? We like the suspense. We like it to build up, and then you see something that comes out of nowhere just like that. You think that they're down and out, and they somehow pull it out of a hat.
We've seen that a few times this year. I think it was Spec in Supercars, and again tonight, where someone that qualified down the order pulls out an absolutely magnificent time in the shootout, and it puts a lot of stress on everyone. And as we saw, it was only one driver that was able to match it. So, yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting shootout, that one. I genuinely enjoyed that. That is something that we don't get to see every day. You don't get to see everybody with a track to themselves. And when you see someone that, as I say, it looked like they were down and out, and they then come along and, just pull out a magical last sector. That was just full commitment coming down through Dandenong Road. I thought it was gone. I thought because he'd gone a little bit wide at the exit of 6 as they were coming down the hill, I thought for all money that was going to cost him some time, but he somehow managed to wrestle it back. And he didn't have the cleanest apex at turn 9 either at Dandenong Road, Will, which made it look even worse than what it actually was. It sort of really truly masked just how much pace he was actually carrying and how much he was able to ask of the car.
Yeah, I think he knew he didn't make turn 9 right, but if you straighten up the wheel on the exit curb, it sort of doesn't punish you, and he clearly knew that. So the experience is really coming out now. That's
right. So just to give you a quick recap, while the drivers are actually out on track here doing a few laps, we're just going to let them run around while we run through a few things in the order here. So Dostal qualified in the shootout. He started last, so he was provisionally first. So he actually started where he qualified anyway. Ethan Knight qualified or came into the shed in 8th place, and he's moved up to 2nd after all of that. So he had a massive gain of 6 spots there. Green, he was 5th in quali, and then so he was 4th, and then he's actually ended up in 3rd after all of that. So he's the mover and shaker there. And Smith, who was 2nd last out, he's actually 4th after that was all said and done. Apart from that, there wasn't a huge amount of movement in the top 10. I think Kiddis jumped up a spot over McDonald. Speck stayed where he was, and so too did Warwick, and then Palfrey, of course, didn't start the shootout, so he starts in 10th by nature anyway. So there's a few little interesting things there to look at and to worry about. But apart from that, when we look at the rest of the order here, as we're getting a few practice starts here. The interesting bit that's looking at it for me is like the guys that are knocking on the door at the top 10. So we talked about them already: Ben Hall, Darren Longman, Steve Mirko, Peter Thrower, and Darryl Callaghan in to 15th. I think a few of them would have been eyeing off the possibility, looking at some of the lap times that had actually been produced for the shootout. I reckon a few of them would have thought that they might have been able to get pretty close to those times.
Oh yeah, we had 11th and 15th that could easily have made it. We saw a few laps where they were up and they just lost it, either coming into turn 6 or the rest of that last sector weren't able to put it together. So yeah, at least another 5 guys that could have made that top 10.
Now, what are you looking for in terms of things here, Will? It's a little bit of a different starting grid, as you can see where Ethan Knight is on the screen here. This is one of the unusual characteristics of Sandown, that where the start-finish line is nowhere near where the grid is. The start-finish line's all the way back halfway down opposite the pits, but the starting grid here starts almost 3/4 of the way down the front straight towards turn 1.
Now, I imagine that's something to make sure it actually gets to the 500 and it's not too much over when it's a 500k race. You have the same for Bathurst. The start-finish line's not the same as the actual finish line.
Yeah, it sort of crosses over. It sort of sits in the middle of the grid around about row 8 or 9, I think it is, just depending on how things are actually going. But yes, there's that one. The bend is the same, so the grid is slightly forward of the start-finish line, but in Sandown's case, it's quite substantially forward. Like the whole entire field is ahead of the start-finish line, whereas at a place like the Bend and Bathurst, you've got part of the grid is actually straddling the actual start-finish line as it sits on the front straight.
Now, some things I'll be looking at tonight is the differences with this track compared to in real life. You see a lot of overtaking into turn 1 and turn 9 in real life. In game, it's actually quite hard. Everything's about the power out of turn 4 and the last corner, and you make your overtakes on the straights. So it'll be all about the guys that can maintain those rear tyres to get the power out.
Well, talking about power and talking about tyres, it is an open tyre round, which is a little bit unusual for Sandown. Normally in years gone past, this has been one of the mandated hard tyre rounds, along with Bathurst, and Adelaide, which are usually the ones where we see the hard tyre come into play. But it is an open tyre choice for the most part of the season, up until around about round 6 or 7. You could pick any tyre you wanted. A lot of drivers were looking at the soft tyre and then opting to go with the harder tyre, purely because it has that longevity now. But now you've got a bit of open choice here, and I don't know, we didn't do much reading into who was running what tyre in qualifying and who was running it in the shootout, but of course the Dev Series rules are whatever you qualify on, you have to do the shootout on, and therefore you have to start the race on as well. So we weren't exactly paying, this cracker's gone a little bit wide there, we weren't exactly paying a lot of attention.
He doesn't want to stay there.
Oh, no, he doesn't. He got out of there in a big hurry.
Well, I was thinking the same thing. I thought with Callaghan down at 15th, he'd be doing a strategy like he did at Barber, and he was on the hard tyre, but then we checked and no, he was on the soft tyre. So I think everyone chose the soft tyre, and with the running we were doing last night, the soft tyre is good for 22, 23 laps, which is halfway through the race. And because you're on the accelerator for so long around here, the tank only lasts 24, 25 laps. So I'd actually be surprised to see many people pick the hard tyre unless a safety car comes out at the right time.
Yeah, well, that's something that a few drivers are sort of trying to factor into some of their plans as well, as to whether or not a safety car is actually going to make an appearance at some point this race. We're not 100% sure if it is. It hasn't had the, I mean, in the Enduro Cup, it seems to have more of a record of appearing than it does in any of the other series that we run. It's not a given that it's going to come out, but it's one of those sorts of one of those things here. It can appear, and sometimes it may not appear. It just depends on how everything unfolds at the end of the day. Just waiting for one last driver to see if they're actually going to be to load back in. Otherwise, we're going to potentially need to just do a just to give them a bit of extra time to get themselves sorted.
Going back to the safety car, we've had 4 rounds with the Dev series, 4 races with the Dev guys that had been safety car heavy. Nice open track. Hopefully we don't see it. But as we know, this is our first long race of the year. If there's no safety car, we'll see probably everyone spread out quite a bit. But if there is one, at the right time, hopefully we'll get some strategy calls.
Yeah, well, that's a bit that I'm looking at too. I mean, what do you think drivers will do? Do you think a number of drivers will, they'll tank it and they'll just, run it until they need to pit, whether that's by safety car, whether that's by running out of fuel, running out of tyres, or do you think some drivers might work the inverse strategy and maybe work backwards and maybe try and offset potentially, what they might end up doing at the back end of the race? So they might be a little bit quicker at the beginning of the race, but then they're going to have a lot heavier boat toward the end of the race, so they might be a bit vulnerable.
Yeah, you'll have some drivers that just want a consistent car for the whole race. They'll get to lap 21, they'll go in, change the tyres, happy days. You have other guys that want to go as long as possible to have a nice attacking set on the second set. And you might even have some guys that, if a safety car comes out in the teens, lap count, they can do some conservation, put some hards on, and they'll get home. So yeah, it'll be interesting if a safety car does come out.
Yeah, definitely will be something I'll be keen on watching to see if it happens. And as I said, it's been one of those things where it hasn't popped out for many times around here, the Dev Series. It's been mostly an Enduro Cup thing where it tends to make an appearance. While we are still waiting for one driver to jump back in, probably we didn't get a chance to look at what the team standings will look like for the this year. And top 10 all in the teams do belong to the Super 2 teams. There is a Super 3 team that is just fractionally outside of the points, which is the team of Rody and Cracker, which is the Hughes-Set Vincenia by PBF. And they are some 400 points, or nearly 400 points in arrears of what Sideways Esport Aussie is at the bottom of the top 10 there. But the two men that are on the front row, the Luke McHugh Racing drivers of Brandon Dostal and Ethan Knight, they currently have the points lead in the championship. And it's been a battle between themselves and SES Team Victoria over the course of the year so far. The interesting part is the championship leader in Luke Speck, his team, North-South Racing, they are third in the running order. His teammate is Angus Brown this year. And Angus himself in the championship lies 15th overall in the order. So he's contributed pretty solidly. But they've got a bit of work to do between the two of them, because remember there was that little mid-season surge from the Paint Doctor engineering crew, and they're only 50 points behind. So they're eyeing off a top 3 in the championship, Will, if they can keep that form going.
Yeah, and I think if you had asked anyone mid-season, we'd all be saying the Paint Doctors would be at the front right now. But the last few rounds have been very unlucky for the two of them, which has caused the teams to sort of start slipping away from them. But you never know. They if they get some good rounds on the board, they might bounce back.
That's right. Now, if you're talking about a play-on strategy, I mean, you've only got to look at what Steve Burko's done on a couple of occasions this year in the PCS Mustang, because he has, I guess, done a lot of work to solidly keep that team in contention, not just in terms of a good result in the driver standings, but also in terms of, I wasn't expecting, after looking at the points, that they would be as close to the Paint Doctor guys as they are, maybe just 120 points in arrears. So, yeah, there's still a bit to go for them this year as well. They've got an opportunity to move up. They could potentially end up in third place, but they've got to pull a bit of a strategy masterstroke on a couple of occasions, I think, to really make that work. And then those top 5 teams are the only ones to have, look at the margin between, 5th and 6th. It's quite the golfing class, but that's also going to show what sort of the kind of drivers that we have in the championship, and it sort of importantly reflects where those drivers are in the championships respectively. So Dostal and Knight, 2nd and 6th. Green and Smith for SES Team Victoria, they're 5th and 7th. Speck and Angus Brown are the odd pair out because they're 1st and 15th. And then you've got Callaghan and Damon McDonald for Paint Doctor, 3rd and 13th. Kemp and Burko, so Kemp is 11th and Burko is 4th. So when you look at all of those there, you've got at least one driver from each team that is inside the top, half a dozen quite happily in the championship. But then the ones that are at the pointy end, have got 2 drivers inside the top 7. So that's why they've already cracked, 3,300 points for the season. So the consistency is there, the good results are there, and they've just got to keep it going. That's the most important thing. They've got to keep it going over the course of the next, 4 rounds. And the what do we got now? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 races in the 4 rounds that follow, including the one that we are about to get underway with, which is the one and only race this year around what we call the fabled home of horsepower. Of course, that is Sandown International Motor Raceway. So race number 21 of the championship is going to be a crucial one because it's worth, Will, as we said a few times already tonight, it is worth 300 championship points in one foul swoop. You could swing your championship very heavily one way or the other with one good result here tonight.
Yeah, and as we were talking with the teams then, it's 590 odd points that a team can get as well, so there can be swings and roundabouts with those results as well.
Yeah, it could be a lot to play out tonight with everything going the way that it is. I think we've got everybody on the track, everybody except for Damo, who has missed the start. There has been a driver that has missed the start, so we will come back to that in a few minutes, but we are underway for the formation laps. So Dostal, the last ditch effort for pole, he's on the prime position on the inside for the run to turn 1 alongside his teammate. Will there be team orders? That'll be rather interesting to see, as the 2 Luke McHugh teammates will head the field for the Sandown 125. Anthony Green starting 3rd, SES Team Victoria, alongside his teammate Ryan Smith. So top 2 teams in the championship occupy the top 2 rows of the grid. Hayden Cupid sitting there in 5th, with Alex Kiddis behind him in 6th, alongside rather than 6th. Dane McDonald's the first of the Paint Doctor engineering cars. He's in 7th, with the North-South Racing and Championship leader Luke Speck in 8th. Steve Warwick starting in 9th, and alongside him we the 86 from New Zealand in Jacob Palfrey. Ben Hall will be 11th on the grid, having just missed the shootout by half a tenth. Darren Loughnane next door to him, getting some reports that he might have missed out on a fast lap after being balked in qualifying. Steve Burko in 13th. He was a little bit of a late-minute load-in to while we had a few seconds to wait for the session to get underway. Peter Thrower in 14th, with Darryl Callaghan in 15th. Definitely not where he would like to have been. Angus Brown, another one of the retro liveries this weekend. He's starting in 16th, ahead of the lead Super 3 runner in Matt Cecil, starting 17th, alongside Darren Kemp. Cracker in 19th is the second place car in Super 3, with Rody, his teammate, right alongside him. Damo, who missed the start in the Nissan, he'll have to be very careful and go to the end of pit lane, or he's going to find himself disqualified if he crosses that line. He'll have to wait there. Adam Kerrison in 22nd, so he'll have a vacant spot next to him. That means there'll be a vacant grid spot in front of Mark Davey, who starts 23rd. And rounding out our field, Angus Wells, Melody Smith, and Glenn Miles.
Something interesting at Sandown, the dirty line is where you start, so it's actually possibly a bit better if you start in second, because you'll get some better rubber on the road.
Yeah, because you're on the normal racing line is there, off to the left-hand side of the driver's right-hand side, which is where Ethan Knight is. But importantly for Dostal, he's on the inside to defend, but his teammates also giving a little bit of margin away here as well. I think there's definitely a little bit of real estate being given away there. Just waiting on one car at the back here. Right, here we go, ready to go. Sandown gets ready to run. Whoops, that's not the right graphic. That's the Long Beach 120. It's actually meant to be the Sandown 125, and we are underway.
Massive start.
What a start from Ethan Knight. What a start from Green as well, as they plunge into turn 1 for the first time. And Green's going to come out with the lead here. There's already some argy-bargy between the teammates. How do they settle this into the chicane? This is not a spot where you want to be too wide for too long. And out the other side with the race lead pops Anthony Green. What a start for him. And he's gone.
He's
bolted.
That's 10 car lengths ahead of him now.
He's bolted. And look at this. His teammate Smith is giving the pole sitter the big hurry up coming down the back chute. This is not what normally happens on lap 1 of a long distance race in any form in ASR, let alone in Super 2 and Super 3. And Dostal having to hold on by his fingernails here going down into Dandenong Road. He's under all sorts of pressure from the 60. And all the meantime, teammate Anthony Green out in front is marching away, and he's got at least a 1.5 second margin coming to the start-finish stripe. 1 lap down, the margin at the end of the day there, 1.1 seconds, 40 laps to go. It's still got quite some way to go here. Don't get settled just yet, because this is not over by any stretch of the imagination.
It didn't take much. Dostal went a bit wide, turn 4, and it's actually held up everyone behind him. So it's allowed Green to get that margin.
Yeah, he definitely has. And now that and Smith's keeping Dostal distracted, that's the important thing. And well, Smith's in a bit of a difficult situation here. We're looking at Palfrey, who's lost a spot with Ben Hall in the running here, who's gone up inside the top 10. It's a clean first lap. Everybody's been able to get through without a problem. But Smith is getting his ears boxed in. It's in third place by both of the Luke McHugh racing cars here. So at least he's keeping them occupied. That's the important thing. And allowing his teammate to get the win here, because remember, it's not, or sort of search the win, I should say, because it's not all about what happens at the beginning of this race, but it's also about the teams. Like these couple of drivers in the front, they're all looking at what potentially might happen in the latter stages of the championship. They might think it's more important to go for a team's title than it is to have one driver go for the championship. They might be looking at it already and thinking, we're already a little bit too far back here. Let's just see if we can reel in the top guys in teams.
Yes, 100%. It can be far more. Get a better feeling with the team's championship over individual drivers. I can attest to that. Got the Supercar Championship last year, but CRE was the team's championship, which I was really covered.
All right, on to lap 3 we go here. There's still a lot of racing to go here. I'm looking sort of down the order here and just and keeping an eye on all sorts of things that are happening. So in with Steve Burko, who started in 13 and still is 13, and he's chasing, I think that's the machine ahead of him of Darren Lognan, the number 31. Bumps going into turn number 6 here as well, plunging down the hill. A little bit of brake lock-up. Couldn't see if that was from Palfrey. Well, the second one was from Lognan for sure. And he got very big in Burko's front windshield very, very quickly there.
This is what I was talking about. It's actually very hard to overtake at this track unless you get a good exit out of the one straight corners.
Yeah, because you're in a drafting train here as well. So you're gaining on people in front, but they're gaining on people in front of them as well. So it's it's like we saw at Monza in Formula One recently too, where everybody just pops open the DRS, but if the car at the front of the queue is far enough ahead, down the front straight at Monza, they weren't actually getting past it all. So there we go. So a mistake from Lognan, and he didn't want to concede there, but unfortunately he was in a compromised position. He had to consider that very quickly, because Callaghan was about to shove his nose down the inside at turn 4 if he didn't.
Yep, and I just noted that Warwick got past Spec. Spec, I think, had a bit of an error. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Steve Warwick moves up 1 spot, up into 8th place. So championship leader now down to 9th. So this is it's not insurmountable, but he wants to be keeping ahead of Dostal as much as he possibly can, because of that little thing we call the drop round that is still to come into play. And he's done a fairly decent job there to get past the championship leader. So we get a new fastest lap of the race from Ryan Smith. Now Lognan's just managed to get back ahead of Burko as well. So Burko made a listake at Dandenong Road, and Lognan surged back ahead, and Callaghan nearly got past. So this is a little energised pack here as well. And his team.
Impressive to see an 8-8 come out already, and that would have gotten people into the top 10.
Yep, that definitely would have got people into shootout. A little bit of a nudge there for Burko on the rear of Lognan, who will hang on to that position. He's getting a little bit willing in that pack there, but we had a rather nasty incident in Formula V in the main in the State Series at turn 2 and 3 a couple of weeks ago. Thankfully, both those drivers are okay, but it highlighted something that was a new thing to me about turn 2 and 3. And the stewards call it a a corner that has no good result unless you're going through there in single file. So if one driver has to back out because and it compromises another driver, you both lose out. You lose tow or touch with the car in front, and you lose to real estate to the people behind you. So you've got to be very, very sensible about a passing opportunity at somewhere like turn 2 and turn 3, because if you get it wrong and you're not cleanly enough ahead, you really want to make the move at turn number 1 and want to be cleanly ahead before you get to turn number 2. So have a look here as we watch McDonald and Kiddis go at it here. So in this situation, they're not holding each other up. They're both on the racing line. They're going through without problem. What Burko and Longden did at this point in time last time around the corner here is that Longden was shallow. He had to pull out. Burko was unsure. They were both much slower than what they normally would be. They were compromised. The cars behind them got closer than they normally would have been, and they lost further touch with the cars in front of them. So therefore, not only did they lose overall lap time, but they compromised themselves and then had to fight to get that sort of real estate back.
One thing I'll note is Smith got past Dostal last lap, and also Speck got past Warwick.
So another change for position there. There, you're right, just in front of the shot there, you can just see Luke Speck going through as we hone in on Jacob Palfrey. And there you see Ryan Smith straight away. He's got some speed. He has turned up the wick and he's done an 8.6 for a fast flying lap. So where is he in the order? So he's just gone past Dostal, and the time gap to his teammate is, look, it's not as huge as what I thought it would be. So it's only 1.2 seconds. So I'd say that Green at the moment, Will, is just sort of driving within himself. He's just conserving the pace at the moment. I don't see any mistakes. I don't see anything, he's not pushing the car. He's not asking too much of the car. He's just plodding along quite nicely. And I look at his last 4 laps. It's an 8.9, an 8.9, a 9.1, and a 9.0. So he's not doing a huge amount of work. He's not putting a huge amount of energy in. I think he might be on a bit of a fuel save strat here. Maybe try and get an extra lap out of the tank.
Yeah, and manage those tyres. Great move from Dostal in turn 6 there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interestingly, with these guys in second and third, with them keep fighting, they keep giving each other the slipstream, so they're actually dragging themselves forward doing this fighting, which they may want to stop doing if they're wanting, if Smith's wanting to let Green go.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go, through the camp. Oh, great shot there, side by side through turn 1, leaning on each other a little bit. Smith tried to go the long way around and couldn't quite pull it off, so he very smartly got back into line so they didn't compromise each other going through the course there. Ethan Knight, he's just started to lose a little bit of touch, and Hayden Cupid's starting to come back at him now as well, so that margin's getting close. And there's been a change there with Kiddis, I've just noticed, has gone through on the car there of Damon McDonald, and he's got that done in the last lap while we were watching the lead group battle. But he's taken the defensive approach now, going up to turn 6. This takes brave balls to go around the outside at turn number 6, and you've got to leave space for him. You can't force another driver off track, and McDonald got it done, and Kiddis allowed him the space to do it. What a sensational move right around the outside. A year or several years ago in real life, you would have ended up in the fence doing that move.
Yeah, I think we saw Tander do that move, and he ended up on his lid. So yeah, great racing from these two.
Yeah, and there was a rule made in the drivers' briefing that they told everybody that if you wanted to go around the outside at turn 6, there was no rules around who was ahead at a certain point that had the right of way. They were basically said, if you guys want to play chicken with each other into turn 6, that's fine by us, but you both got to get through there cleanly, and you can't force another driver off track to maintain your position. So that's precisely what happened there.
Yeah, and now that we're seeing Speck's got some free air, he's being able to just be in the metronome, and he's now really on the back of these two that have been fighting.
Yeah, he certainly is. So Kiddis also made a mistake there in the braking zone at turn 2. He locked the front, and he's now lost touch with McDonald, and that's put him now in the gun sights of the number 13 machine that's heading up the back straight right now. So it's not as strung out as I thought it would be across the top 10. There's a little bit of a breakaway. There's a few drivers that are still stuck together, and Kiddis continues his march forward here, but he's got a little bit of work to do with the championship leader right behind him. Warwick is now coming under some pressure from Ben Hall. So Ben's made his way into the 10, so he's found his rhythm. And Palfrey's now dropped back a further spot, so he's dropped back to 12th. Lachlan's gone past him. Oh, I almost thought one of them was coming to the pits at this stage, but it's just Warwick trying to shake the CRE DevOps Mustang off his tail, and there's going to be an exchange of position here at turn 1.
Great run from Ben, but he's might just not be enough ahead, but Warwick's given him all the space in the world.
He has, he's given him plenty of room there. Now what happens here at 2? Warwick sends it and now has to cut the grass, and he can't retain the spot from there, and he knows it, gives it up and falls back in pretty quickly because Lachlan's going to have a head of steam here. That was pretty crucial when he came back on, because Lachlan would have carried the momentum through turn 4 and he would have been through in a flash. He still might be through here as they head up towards the ASR bridge. 260 plus kilometres an hour on the approach to turn 6 in top gear, and Lachlan thinks better of it this time around.
Oh no, in the last lap Dostal's taken nearly a second out of green. He's really turning up the whip.
Yeah, he's actually just gone back past Smith as well, so he's been playing a little bit of a longer game here as we're now around quarter distance through this race, and probably expecting that there'll be some pit stops in the next 10 laps or so, I'd say. Well, what math did you do from earlier in the week? What sort of pit stop time, or what pit stop lap are we looking at, more importantly?
14 if you're willing to put the hard tire on, and then anything probably from lap 18 onwards, you're getting pretty much mid-race. There is a massive battle up front. There is a massive battle up front.
Well, we were just going back to have a look and see where the Super 3 leader was, which is Matt Cecil. But yes, it has now become a major battle here. So I think Green has either made a mistake somewhere or he's asked too much of the car, because all these drivers are right on his tail. I'm actually wondering if some lap traffic might have got involved here, Will, because I think it's Melanie Smith who is just off the back there. There she is in the 44. That she may have become involved here, albeit accidentally, and might have compromised the race leader.
Yeah, well, look, Dostal was already making quite a bit of ground on Green, but then I think I think you're right, Green caught Melody turn 2 and 3, and that's taken away any advantage he had.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're just getting that confirmed on our replay now that, yes, there was a bit of a difficult situation. Dostal goes through to the lead now. Let's actually go and bring it up on the Paint Doctor replay, so we'll be able to show you what actually happened here at that particular stage. So Smith, the lap traffic, so she had a reasonable margin here, but the problem was her line through the turns here was all fine, but the pace that she's taking was just not there. And in actual fact, Dostal had already gained significant ground on Green, and then Smith getting over, well, trying to be predictable here and give the racing line, but they all didn't know what to do. So then they all just took off and went straight through once they got to the kink at turn 5. So for Smith, she did have a little bit of a factor in that, but just not as significant as we otherwise would have thought.
Yeah, it's just been a bit unlucky for Green, but and he'll be a bit hot under the collar here, but if he puts his head down, he'll catch back up.
Yep.
As we see, Dostal's got his own lap traffic.
Yeah, he's got his own lap traffic. Glenn Miles trying to get out of the way here.
And Green's taking advantage.
Green pounces. So that was a little bit silly from Dostal, if I'm being perfectly honest with you there. Yes, he had to wait, but he was a bit too eager to get the race lead back, and he wants it straight back from Green, who leaves him the space, and there's a little bit of contact here. This could end in tears if it's not careful, and this is now getting rather interesting.
Oh.
Dostal sides down the inside at 2, compromises himself again, and Smith can't take advantage on Green. So, and I don't think they probably want to. The teammates are actually playing a little bit sensible here, but that could have been a big accident and very, very strange behaviour. I would say Dostal didn't really need to run into the back of Miles there.
Yeah, and it was a pretty big hit. I wouldn't be surprised if Dostal's a little bit left-hand down from that.
Well, there's actually a little bit more going on than what just is up the front here. So while the front runners are tackling with the lap traffic, you've got McDonald has caught back up and past Kiddis, and now Speck is having a lunge here at Dandenong Road. He tries to get down the inside. He leans on the 176 and couldn't get it done. Pulls back.
Yeah, he just didn't get the run out at turn 9 there.
couldn't quite get the move, so lap traffic starting to be a factor here. Well, I'm thinking, I'm not sure what sort of tyres everybody's on. I haven't had a chance to have a good look at it, but I'm thinking here, if lap traffic's starting to come into play, why don't you extricate yourself from the traffic? Get into some clear air, get a pit stop over and done with. Yes, if you want to put the hard tyre on, you're going to have to go to the end, but you might have no choice. You might have to put the soft tyre on, get yourself out of traffic, and then you might actually be able to make a net gain on some of the cars that are around you.
Would have to be fuel saving though, so that they may just be wanting to get to that fuel number.
Get to that critical lap number.
17, 16, 17.
Yeah, and get one pit stop out of the way, and then just put on whatever tyre they need to put on to get home.
Yeah.
All right, so a few drivers taking a few different strategy approaches to all of this. The race leaders are contending with traffic. Some of the traffic is quite well strung out. So you can see here Kerrison ahead of, I think it's Cracker there and Rhodey in the back of shot. So Kerrison is second in Super 2. Sorry, not Super 2. Sorry, he's second in Super 3. And the man who's leading Super 3 at the moment, Matt Cecil, is 2 positions further ahead. Now, where Kerrison's exiting turn 4, Cecil is at the top of the back straight and going down to Dandenong Road. So he has got quite a margin at the moment on the nearest Super 3 runner. And Darren Kemp, I wouldn't be surprised to see if Kemp's running the hard tyre here. And he's got the white sidewall tyre on there. And Cecil, I think, has got the white sidewall tyre on as well. And I'm actually looking, no, they've actually got the soft tyre on, sorry, because Kerrison's got the hard. Kerrison's got the yellow. So
that'll be interesting for Kerrison.
That will be interesting to see what he's doing. I didn't think the hard tyre was that much slower, so he's sort of gone to a bit of an inverse strategy here, and maybe hoping for a safety car to come out at a particular point in time where he can put on the soft tyre and blaze along. So he's banking. He's actually coming down to the front straight now. He's probably banking on that safety car to appear at an appropriate time, and then potentially catch the guys that are running on the softer tyre out here, and be faster than them at the end of the race.
Yeah, so if a safety car doesn't come out, he'll be coming in about lap 24, can put softs on, and then just really power through and maybe make up some time with Cecil. Yeah,
blaze home from here. So Peter Thrower here at 4:20 and 16th, and Glenn Miles has had a trip across the grass there. The DCD board goes flying, and Smith gets out of the way. So still no callers on pit road at the moment as it stands. And lap traffic being negotiated here by Thrower. Onto Angus Brown, who's just ahead of him. Yeah, the retro Caltex inspired livery. I think this one sort of harks back, I think, to the old days in the late the 1990s. I think it was the old Cosworth Sierras. I think a couple of them had this one.
Ah, yeah. I was almost thinking the Coca-Cola livery, but yeah, I think you're a bit more of the money than me.
Yeah, I think I remember having a little model car, I think, at one stage of something very, very similar looking to this one. So Brown has just grabbed a spot off of, who did he grab a spot off there? Was that Palfrey who's falling through the field? We've got our first drive-through penalty, which will be track infringements for Damien Hitter in the 222 in Super 3. So he's probably picked that up in the backside of the curb at turn 7, or he's potentially picked it up through this sequence of corners here. Just not quite sure where he is on the track at the moment. It's our live timing giving us a little bit of grief with that one. And on we go to the commence lap 17. So getting close to that half distance mark. Lap 20, 21 will be the half distance point. So it's gone relatively smoothly so far for a lot of drivers. There hasn't been any major incidents or any sort of trouble, but I mean, we often say that, but then it's a commentator's curse when we jinx it.
It is a welcome reprieve.
Oh, there was
the last few.
Well, there was
Warwick.
There was a little moment there for Steve Warwick. I was worried that might have been the jinx that broke the camel's back, and we might have a little bit of a look at what happened there. I think it was just some accidental contact. I think Warwick might have been slightly compromised off of turn 4. He was narrow for turn 1 and 2, so it's a little bit slow. And I think he just had a moment here. Yeah, he's missed the apex at 4, and then the car it sat up on the curb, didn't it? It straddled the curb, and he struggled to control it, but he managed to get it off the curb.
Pretty easy on worn tyres. It'll bring the battle pack down to the 6, 7, 8 battle. They've really tightened up.
Yep, they have indeed tightened up a little bit. They're going into turn 1 now. Oop, there they go. Yep, they get definitely tight. Tighter than it's been for a little while now. Kiddis goes to the head of this little queue. Now, this is one of the battles, I think, that could be decided with a... Whoops! Could be decided with how the pit stop sequences play out. So, if I was Luke Speck here, I'd be trying to grab an undercut as soon as possible. I'd be looking here saying, I need to come in and get my pit stop done, and because these two are starting to hold each other up. He's sort of playing the sensible game at the moment while these two lean on each other. Kiddis trying to pull the trick that McDonald did a little while ago, but McDonald's having absolutely none of it and jumps back into the 6th place here. Yes.
Last 2 laps in a row that both of them have done that move on each other. It's great to see.
Well, if I'm Speck, I'm pulling the trigger and I'm coming to pit lane right now, but he doesn't pull the trigger, so he's trying to get, again, as you keep saying, to that fuel lap. But the problem for him, the longer he sits behind these two, he's losing more and more ground to the drivers in front, and Kemp has been to pit lane, so he's coming out of the pits now. Now, he was on the hard tyre, I think. I've got a funny feeling he was on the hard tyre and has came in and switched that tyre out. So he couldn't quite make it to the critical lap to get that done. Or maybe he was on the soft. I'll have to go back and just double check that. He was running with Matt Cecil. So I'll come back to you on that one. But he's probably the first runner I think we've seen come to pit road.
Yeah, so as you said, we're starting to see the pit stops come into play, but as we're also seeing, there's the battle packs are tightening up as people's tyres are coming away. So it's hard as a driver. The competitive side of you wants to stay out and beat the guy in front of you, and the logical side is screaming at you to jump in the pits and maybe do an undercut.
So yeah, just confirming actually Kemp was on the soft tyres, on the white sidewall tyre, so he's come in at sort of for him have been lap 18 and get that soft tyre off, whereas all these leaders are watching on screen.
Oh,
they're going to lap 20.
McDonald has not done the pit entry right.
No, he has. He's had a moment there. There's a few drivers that are coming into pit lane right now, and McDonald is in, and so too is Steve Burko. So we will grab a bit of a replay here. Let's have a look at what's happened with Damon McDonald, because this is normally something that's pretty straightforward to do. It's a straightforward approach. So coming through the last sequence of corners here, and pit entry is right there to the left side. What's he done there? Oh dear, yeah, that's that, and he'll probably find himself in some trouble for that. Not just because of not being able to do that right, but because I think he's going to cop a speeding penalty for that. I would not be surprised, and that would be.
He's got tons of damage as well. He's just sitting in the pit bay.
Yeah, so he's going to be very heavily compromised here. And Burko's actually, Burko was some distance behind him, and he's actually going to gain a spot. So that's how much damage the Paint Doctor 666 has. And Burko comes out 17th place. He's going to feed right back out in amongst the leaders here as Knight goes through in the 77. Now, Cupid's gone ahead of him at some point as well. And Dostal, I think, is in the lane. So race leader.
In.
Yeah, Dostal is in the lane. So race leader in. What about the championship leader? What's he doing at the moment? There's quite a bit of a logjam in the lane at the moment. So Kiddis, Warwick, Dostal, Lognan is in there as well. So that
Beck's got all the air. He's probably got a whole sector to himself, and he's just by himself.
He's by himself at the moment. The Paint Doctor car of Damon McDonald, I'm still keeping an eye out for where he is. I think he's left the lane, and he has actually avoided a pit lane speeding penalty. So he's very lucky there. For Speck, I'm not sure what he's up to here. He's going as long as he possibly can. Could he possibly do a soft from here?
Oh yeah, easy.
So
what he's doing is for the first sector he hang back behind those guys and maintained his tyres, and he can actually get half decent lap times by himself. But yeah, he's come in. So I thought he might go in 1 or 2 more laps.
Yep. So he's in the lane now, along with Hayden Cupid, Ryan Smith. Ethan Knight surprisingly went around again. So he's feeling pretty confident here, and Anthony Green went around again as well. So they're trying to get a tyre delta here, I think, Will. This is for me. If they feel that they could make this work, there's two different team principles here. So two different teams inside the top two cars. Their teammates have been in and stopped, and they are trying to get a tyre offset here as another penalty for Damo hit. I'm not sure what that one's for. There's probably another track violation somewhere. But there are drivers now that officially have not stopped that have moved up the order. So Ben Hall, third place. Remember, he was at the bottom end of the top 10. Angus Brown, who at one stage, I think I was seeing him about 14, so he's up to 4th. So he's the teammate to Luke Speck. He's also yet to stop.
Beck and Kiddis coming out of the pits now. It's going to be very tight.
That will be extremely tight for them. Now, Ethan Knight, what's he doing? He's coming into the lane. So too Anthony Green. So race leaders are in. That's going to cycle Ben Hall through as the race leader unless he comes into the lane on this lap. I'm fully expecting that he probably will, and he is. So next attention turns to Brown, and so too with him. So we expect that that's going to be cycled through. So actually Ryan Smith is now the race leader. So he's managed to jump Brandon Dostal through the stops.
It's fantastic work from him.
So good pit work from them. But now they've got some Super 3 runners that they've got to clear. So for their sake, I think that they're hoping these runners will come in at the first port of call here. Cracker's definitely not, and neither is Smith. So now they've got to get out of the way here, but they've caught them at probably what is the best part of the track, which is the front straight. There's Green coming out of the lane, so he's going to come out behind Dostal. Now this is
going to have flashbacks from what Melody and Green did a few laps ago.
Yep, got to make the decision and got to make it early, and Smith is now holding up. Smith holding up Smith here.
Whoa.
No, and that's a late decision for Melody, and had to... Oh, I don't know what you do in that situation there, but probably should have seen the faster cars on the front straight, gotten out of the way and got that over and done with. But Smith has cycled to the lead here. The Hooters car leads the Sandown 125.
Yeah, it's fantastic work in the pits there to make the jump.
So one car that hasn't stopped, which is Adam Kerrison. So he's on the hard tyre. So remember, Cecil was on the soft, Kerrison was on the hard, and they were looking for this tyre offset. Now, they're all a lap down to the race leaders at the moment, all the drivers that have stopped. So Matt Cecil is, he's actually just managing to hang on to the lead lap, but everybody else in Super 3 has gone a lap down. So this is actually a straight up race here between these two. There's a yellow flag out. What's that for? I think someone's on the infield. Oh, it's a car spun. I think it might be Melody Smith, who's gone around. Yep, Smith caught in an awkward situation here at the final sequence of corners. Off the racing line, she's got to be very careful rejoining here. That's the best.
Well done.
Yep, that's the best way to do it, and point the right direction and keep the race under green. So lucky situation there for Smith. Oh, there! Look at all the fast cars going by. That's a bit of evasive action there if I ever saw it.
Notice Ethan's just not gelling with the new tyres, and Speck's been able to get past him in the last lap.
We've got the replay here of what's happened to Melody Smith. So I think, I'm not sure if this is self-inflicted or if there's some contact with a lead lap car here, but off the corner, and oh, there's some contact with a lead lap car there. That is genuinely frowned upon by the stewards.
Yeah, it will be. It's frustrating as a guy in front, a driver in front with a lap car, and Melody seems to be struggling powering out of the corners. So when a lead car is accelerating at apex and you got someone in front of you that's accelerating well after the apex, it's very discombobulating.
Well, keeping an eye on things here. So Damon McDonald, 17th on the road, and then Matt Cecil, 19th on the road in this group of cars. Adam Kerrison is in pit lane now, so he was 5th in the running order when he came to pit lane to take the hard tyre off. So this will be rather interesting here to see where he comes out relative to this group of cars and what he comes out on, if he comes out on a soft tyre or what he's actually going to do. So these guys are on their way down to the last sequence of corners, and Kerrison has gone the soft, so he's leaving the lane at the moment. There he is, and hopefully we'll see the pack come through. So there goes McDonald, and there goes Cecil. There's the 222 leaving the lane. So Kerrison will be behind Cecil going into the final phase of this race, but he's going to have a much bigger tyre delta. But the problem for him, race leaders are going to be on Kerrison's hammer. They're coming down pit straight right now.
Yeah, Kerrison's only going to have about 3 or 4 laps to himself here.
Oh, he's going to have probably less than that, I would say. He's probably going to have about 2. So he's got to really make use of this soft tyre rubber. So he's at turn 2, where Cecil's around the corner at turn 5. So if I was him, I would power up the hill here and then maybe look to slot in behind the race leaders, because they will drag him along and potentially might drag him into a future, race winning position for the Super 3 class. So it's a straight up fight between the 134 of Kerrison and the 23 of Cecil, who's tucked in behind Darren Kemp here.
Kerrison's actually made a bit of ground on Cecil. We saw there was basically a whole sector before, and now definitely within that. So it's been a good call for him.
Yep. So, and importantly for Matt Cecil, I know we know he's got a massive lead in the championship at the moment, but usually those advantages in points have come because he's finished 4, 5, 6 positions in front of the next Super 3 car with all the Super 2 cars in between. In this situation, he is only 1 position ahead of Kerrison. Now, the race leaders are going through on Kerrison at the front straight, so they've actually done a really good job there, catching him at the right time. And now Kerrison has just got to latch onto the back of these 2 and go with them as best as he possibly can, see what sort of ground he can make.
The mover and shaker at the moment is actually Speckles. He's probably half a second faster than everyone in front of him for the last 3 laps in a row.
Yeah, and he's jumped that group of cars. So remember, McDonald was in that group of cars that he was following. So was Kiddis. He's jumped them both. McDonald was self-inflicted in the pits. Kiddis has been purely jumped based on speed. And then Ethan Knight, he's faded a little bit as well. So he's actually fallen behind Speck as well. So he's not had a good middle stint of the race. And he is flying along here, Luke Speck. Now, the next car up the road for him is Hayden Cupid in the Sideways Esport Aussie number 9. And
really by himself the whole race.
He has.
This will be the first challenge you'll get.
This will be the first challenge, you're right. The first proper challenge that he will get, depending on how much room there is. So there's the gap. It's visual. And we'll get a read on the time here as they go down the front chute and cross the start-finish line. So the margin there is 3.9. 3.999. It's effectively 4 seconds between Cupid and Speck. But importantly for Speck, he's gained an extra couple of points back over Dostal, who currently sits in second. So he's not losing a huge amount of points as it sits right now. But you know what? There's still nothing better than 300 championship points. And now they're juking and jiving. Now they're starting to get a little bit jiggy with it as they head into the braking zone. And that was a late decision from Dostal to withdraw. And they both overcommitted on the run to turn 6. And now they've got some lap traffic that they're about to have to deal with in the form of Damo Hitter.
Yeah, Smith was a bit wide on the exit there, and Dostal didn't pull it up in time, and there's been a bit of contact.
Oh, I can see now Hitter's just been given another penalty, and it'll be for the second last chicane, or second last proper corner, sorry. He did it just as the race leaders were coming out of shot.
Yeah, Damo's having a horrid night with those track cuts.
Yep, so he's at about, by my count, that's 5 because he's had 6 because he's had 3, which are the warnings, and then he's had at least another 3 drive-throughs since then. So yeah, not going according to plan for him. Here's Anthony Green. He's just moved up in his 3rd place. He's just moved ahead of Kerrison and now trying to catch up to the lead group of cars. Margin between Dostal and Green's about 4.5 seconds. So you can just see Green in the back of the shot as the leaders are approaching turn 6 again here for the 29th time. Big bit of smoke there at turn number 6 as well. I'm wondering if there's someone that's been outbrake themselves or it's off the road. Who's ahead of this group at the moment, Will? It's you see off the Smith can there. It's one of the, is that the Super 3 cards? That's Matt Cecil, I think, that's just ahead of this group.
Yes, it is.
So there you go. Yeah, it is Matt Cecil who's lost some touch. So he's made a mistake in the zone here. And Kerrison will come round the final corner and he'll be able to see Cecil at the bottom end of the pit straight. So he'll get a little bit of confidence from that, I think. But he's running out of laps. He's only got 10 laps because remember, he's already a lap down to the race leaders, and Cecil's about to go a lap down.
Yeah, so where we saw before the pit stops, Harrison had a whole straight. Now it's about half a straight to Cecil. Cecil's unfortunately making a few mistakes. And Harrison's on the better tyres, so yeah, it'll be very tight towards the end.
Definitely very tight. So Angus Brown now coming under a little bit of pressure here from Steve Warwick, who returns coming under some pressure from Steve Burko. And you got Rhodey, who's in here as well. I believe Rhodey's actually a lap down. Yes, he is. So he's actually outside the 20 at the moment. So he's not a factor in this battle. But the two Commodores and the one Mustang starting to fight over what is, well, it's not a very important position. It's a heavyweight slugfest for 11th, and the 10th place car in Ben Hall is some 4 seconds up the road at the moment. So they've not got a lot of time to sort this out and catch up to CRE DevOps Mustang if they want that last position inside the top 10.
Yeah, it's very spread out between basically 8th on to 13th. It's very spread out.
Yeah, it's become quite spread out. Importantly, the bit that I'm looking at here, Will, is that everybody is still running. So we actually haven't had a single retirement yet inside of the first 30 laps. Yes, we've had a few drivers who spun and a few drivers that have had a bit of a tangle or some pit stop dramas or things like that, but it's been a very clean race so far. Everybody's found their rhythm, found their groove, but safety car hasn't appeared, but importantly, nobody's retired.
Yeah, it's been a stark contrast from the last 2 rounds, which admittedly were difficult rounds with being street circuits. We had quite a high attrition rate and a high safety car rate. Now we've gotten to nice clean racing. The first long race of the year, everyone's spread out. It's quite different to what the last 2 rounds were.
Just behind the man we were just watching there, Angus Wells, this little slugfest is going on for 6th and 7th place. So Knight is now starting to give the big hurry up to the Mustang of Alex Kiddis. So this is getting rather willing and rather interesting. We look rearwards now from the Mustang, back at the other Mustang, and Kiddis seems to have some good drive off the final corner. Knight seems to be a lot better through the twisty bits, through the corners. There's, I guess, the bit that I always like to take away from Sandown, Will, is a lot of people just go, meh, the circuit's just a straight with a bunch of corners in between. Or, sorry, 2 straights with a bunch of corners in between. That's what it pretty much looks like. And, you've got to set your car up for both, though. You can't set your car up to be faster down the straights because most of your time actually is made up in the corners. Yeah,
and these cars, there's very minimal things you can do with them. The main thing being a camber change on the rear and the front. So if Kiddis has a slightly different camber to the car behind you, you'll see strengths and weaknesses there.
Well, the thing that I think a lot of drivers were looking at this year was because they, for some reason or another, they wanted to make the development series cars a bit more akin to what the supercars series were, with no anti-roll bars, because the Gen 3 supercars don't have any anti-roll bars in them, which has made the racing quite interesting. But the Super 3 cars and the Super 2 cars, they've had it taken away from them this year, and a lot of drivers were a little bit upset with that because that's something that they'd been used to. So they ended up getting back some of the camber and the caster changes that had otherwise been locked away and people hadn't been able to touch them. And I think there's a few drivers that would have preferred the anti-roll bars to come back.
Yeah, so last year we had anti-roll bars with no camber, and this year we have camber with no anti-roll bars. I think the biggest reason for that was we were seeing all these cars popping tyres last year, which it's not fun, and having no roll bars makes everything a bit more even, in my opinion.
Yeah, it puts a bit more of an emphasis on the setup as well. Like a lot of drivers also, you've still got the brake bias, which is the cockpit adjustable brake bias, which you can set so front to rear, so you can still shift, your braking balance a bit earlier in the piece and make a few adjustments on the fly there. While there's this battle going on for 1st and 2nd, the battle for 6th and 7th is still going on, and these. There's a bit of unhappiness going on here. They were leaning on each other coming down the hill into Dandenong Road. So we'll go and have a look and let's just get an idea of what's sort of been going on here with these two. So Knight's not 100% happy with what's been going on. Now I think there was a yellow flag out here too, because Glenn Miles might have actually been either off the road or in a little of an accident here. So, here we go. Don't tell me this is turn 6 and there's been a little bit of a move. Oh, well, we did say if there was people that wanted to tangle with each other, and I think Knight probably is a little bit aggrieved there by the fact that space wasn't given when he was clearly enough alongside. So that will be an interesting discussion to be had after this race is over.
Yeah, a little bit of rubbing, but they're racing on. Didn't see too much of
Well,
that.
it's
So.
about second verse, same as the first.
Oh,
It's about to happen again, but Knight's not far enough up this time. But then he's sort of worried Kiddis out of the position. Switcheroo, Kiddis goes defensive, and this is getting quite, I won't say entertaining, but it's getting quite intense between these two at the moment. I was about to say, I thought that it might have been a late lunge up the inside there, but they were both very, very deep on the brakes. And now Knight getting a bit greedy on the accelerator pedal, actually lost a bit of touch with the drive out of the last corner.
Yeah, the last two laps, Knight's taken a shallow entry into turn 11, and it's really mucked up his drive onto the front straight. So if he just focuses a bit, I think he'll be able to get past on the front straight.
Yeah, I think so too. Green has continued to lose time to the leaders, so even though the leaders are pushing each other hard at the moment, they've eked out some time there. You were having a bit of a look at something else, I think.
Yeah, Dostal, Smith, they crossed the line with a 100th between them.
So there was a challenge on into turn number 1, so Dostal is trying to seize the initiative here at the end of lap 35, so there's only 6 laps to go after this one. It's been all green flag running so far, so you can't rely on the pit stop sequences and the undercuts and the overcuts anymore. You've got to get the moves done on track. So he tried to throw the kitchen sink at Smith, and where's he look stronger? He looks pretty decent under brakes, I think, Will. That's the bit for me that I'm sort of looking at going, Dostal actually looks a lot better in the braking zone than Smith does.
Yeah, so Dostal's got, 2 or 3 lap newer tyres, so he'll be a bit more confident than Smith.
Yeah, there or thereabouts, roughly 2 to 3 laps. So he's got a little bit less wear on those tyres. And yeah, looking pretty handy. Smith flashing the lights, warning the lap traffic, desperately warning the lap traffic that they're approaching. It's Melody Smith again. And this is going to get nasty if it's not careful. And
they've done well.
They've done well to get through there. Smith actually at the last minute's probably pulled the smart decision here. Back to the battle for 6th and 7th. They just managed to round up Matt Cecil, and it's on again. Now, is Knight going to go the long way around here? I think he is. Oh, big lock up from Kiddis, and it sends them both wide. Yep, and he'll have to cough that up. So
he's popped the tyre.
Yeah, he has. Has he popped the tyre? He has indeed. You're absolutely right. The tyre's let go on Alex Kiddis, and he's in the sand trap at turn number 9. Is he going to get this car out? I think he will just get the car out and continues on. But yes, I thought that might have been like a brake lock-up, but you're right. The tyre's let go.
Yeah, I wonder if...
Oh, and Dostal in the meantime as well. Dostal's had a trip across the infield somewhere at turn 1-2. So it's all happening. Kiddis has... We'll grab that replay in a minute. Kiddis has cut the final corner, and he will come to pit lane and have to change that tyre. So that takes him out of the running. But the interesting bit for me is what happened to Brandon Dostal. Paint Doctor Replay is going to give us the lowdown on this one. There's all sorts of stuff going on here. So Dostal looks like he had a pretty good run on Smith heading down towards turn number 1. So Smith goes to try and break the toe. So he can't move back here. Dostal is... he's just broke too late. He's broke too late and has had to go straight on. And that's why he has lost so much ground there. And he's come back on, thankfully for him, just in front of traffic. And then that's what I saw. He was off the road there as well. So he realised he wasn't going to make the next corner and had to shortcut turn 2 and 3 as well. So he's had a really, really awkward start to that lap.
Oh, weird.
Very, very weird. And for him, I think that's probably his race done. Barring a run from Smith, he's going to have to settle for second here. So he's just going to have to bank the championship points that go along with second place and be content with it. Yeah. Hardware malfunction, we're reporting from Nathan Higginson.
Okay.
and he's in the SES chat as well, which looks after the Luke McHugh stable. So he'll be pretty close to what's going on there. Meanwhile, Kiddis has come back out onto the track. He rejoined in 17th, so he's now a lap down to the leaders.
Yeah, I wonder if just the biff and barging that those two had was enough to make that front tyre pop.
Maybe. We'll never ever know, I think. Championship leader Luke Speck, he moves up to 5th place in all of that. He's getting closer and closer to Hayden Cupid, but I think he's going to run out of laps here. So he's got lap traffic in between that needs to be kind to him. There's Cupid just going down the front straight. Speck's closing in. The margin now 2.1 seconds. So the last time we saw that gap, it was nearly 4. He's halved it, but it's taken him quite a long time to halve the deficit. So he's really got to get his skates on these next couple laps. But remember, he's got that better tyre offset.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the last 3 or 4 laps, he's had traffic get past. He's far better later on in the season by himself.
Glenn Miles face into the wall here, and Smith straight into it.
Straight into a late safety car.
This probably possibly might be a late safety car. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. We don't know what's going on there, but Miles is stuck in the middle of the circuit, and I don't think the stewards are going to have much of a choice here. They're probably going to have to throw something and see what happens. There it is. Yep, safety car called, and it's still a stricken car for Glenn Miles. He's only just got going now, and he was in a compromising position, and Melody Smith had actually come into contact with him at some point. So we'll have to go back and have a look and see what that was all about. But, well, this is going to cause a little bit of interesting pain for a few drivers, I think, because they've now got some lap traffic in between cars, and they've got some lap traffic that's going to be a factor here, trying to either unlap themselves, or they've got the race leaders are now all going to be glued together.
I'll make a note. Kerrison actually got past Cecil in the last few laps.
Did he? That's
Yes.
something that was completely unsighted to us. So yeah, you're absolutely right there. You're absolutely right. So we're just waiting.
Obviously, Cecil's made a mistake somewhere, and Kerrison's taken advantage of it. This last lap dash is going to be crazy.
Well, before we get to the last lap dash, let's actually go and have a look at what happened to Glenn Miles, because this actually will tell us a little bit more of the story as to what's happened here, if he's had some contact with somebody or what's caused this issue. And off we go into turn number 4, and he has... he's slow off of the corner, and Palfrey wasn't expecting it, so Glenn was very, very slow. He's then tried to move forward and then realises he has to stay where he is. Brody with a little bit of contact there, and this is what I was sort of looking at. Here come the race leaders. They've seen them go round. That's good evasive action from them. So too Knight and Dostal, and then Green realising as well. And I'm pretty sure Smith's in the next group just behind Cupid. And and she would have unsighted. Look at that, and nowhere to go. So she was in the process of being lapped or being put another lap down, or lapped by Alex Kiddis, and then straight into Glenn Miles, unsighted. No clue where that car was, but stewards had no choice there but to throw the yellow flag and throw the safety car.
Now, Steve, we're going into overtime. It'll be interesting if anyone has accounted for having a bit of extra fuel in the car.
Well, that is the $64,000 question, isn't it? We are not 100% sure what everybody has done, but the bit that is of interest to me here is just who is who in the zoo in the running order. Right now, there's no unlapping. You're not allowed to unlap yourself unless you are a leader. Unless you are a lap traffic between the leader and the safety car, you're not allowed to unlap yourself. So the hard part here is there are lap traffic cars that are in the way. So let's just run through it here. So you've got Ryan Smith, who's leading the race. Now, he's got a lap traffic car between him and Brandon Dostal, which is Damon McDonald. So Damon is running in 15th. Now, he is the car that is one lap down. So if there's been any lucky dogs handed out, they've been handed out already. There won't be any more handed out. So Smith is the one with it all to lose here. Dostal in second. Behind him is Angus Wells in the 88 machine. So that's a car between him and Hayden Cupid. Problem for Cupid is he's got nobody. He's got Luke Speck right behind him. So that is a battle that probably will try to change hands between now and the end of the race. Between Spec and the next place car, Ethan Knight, there is some lap traffic, and the lap traffic is Alex Kiddis and the Super 3 race leader in Adam Kerrison. There's actually a bunch of other cars in there as well. I'm just trying to work out who they all are. So you've got Kiddis, who's a lap down. You've got Kemp, who's a lap down. You've got then Kerrison, who's a lap down. And then Mark Davey, who's 2 laps down, who's in there as well. So that gets back to Ethan Knight, who's 5th, and then Cecil, who's, you know, 2nd in the Super 3 running behind Kerrison. So he's now got another shot to get that Super 3 race win here. But then Lognan's going to be trying to round him up, with Callaghan has got Cracker in front of him to get unlapped. What happened to Anthony Green? He was running 3rd, so he's had an off somewhere and has had to come back onto the circuit at some point. That, for me, is a curious one there, Will.
Unless he's taken a gamble to put fresh tyres on.
Yeah, I'm just having a look through the order, and I don't think he has. I think he's had a very bad lap just before the safety car came out. He did a 1:24 on the lap before the safety car, whereas everybody else had done, I think it was 1:09. So yeah, looking at lap 39 for Dostal in the 1:09s, and then looking at Anthony Green there, and on the same lap for him, he did a 1:24, and he had a really poor final sector. So it doesn't. Maybe he did pit, but at 14 seconds in the pit lane doesn't seem right. We're getting some word through he might have pitted, but I wouldn't have thought that's this sort of situation. The track position's king. You're going into 1 lap sprint. You've compromised your own race here, I think.
Yeah, unless those tyres were really going to go, you could have defended that spot pretty easily.
Yeah, I think so too. Unless the tyres were about to pop. That's the only thing of concern for me.
Or you didn't have enough fuel.
Or he didn't have enough fuel. One of the two. Well, we're about to get a good old-fashioned sprint to the finish here, with all the key runners in some really interesting positions, but a lot of them have got some lap protection here. Some lap runners are the protection for them as they come to the line. So Smith's going to head him to the line here. 1 more lap to go. We are 2 laps past the scheduled distance, and we are back underway for the final time.
What a separation.
On the run to the first corner here, and Dostal has gotten past the lap traffic. He's got a little bit of work to do, though.
Hado's looking for the second place here.
He's looking for it, and Smith will have to defend going up the back chute, I fear, here, as Dostal is right there with him, and Spec is looking for 3rd place off of Cupid. So there's 2 battles to keep an eye on here. This front one, but Smith's got a pretty handy margin. I think he's got half the job done here. He might be on his way to a win.
Turn 4.
And then Spec has not got to run off of turn 4 like he would have liked. He's got lap traffic to get past, so he might have to content to settle for 4th place here as well. Oh, big lock-up going into turn number 6. And unfortunately for him, I think he's going to come up a little bit short here of a podium finish. But Smith will run out underneath the Penrite Bridge for the 43rd time. And after 2 laps past the scheduled distance, it's going to be pretty close finish at the end. 3 Mustangs going to fill the top 3 spots on the podium in Super 2. Smith gets another win this year ahead of championship protagonist Dostal, and Cupid with a great finish up into 3rd place. Definitely not what he would have expected as the night progressed on. The championship leader picks up some valuable points, so he'll finish in 4th, so keeps him at the top of the point standings. Ethan Knight will home in 5th ahead of Darren Longnan. Daryl Callaghan, that's a good run for him. He started 15th, he got it up to 7th place. Very good drive for him. Anthony Green in 8th. That last pit stop, pretty costly for him. And Warwick in 9th, where he started, and Ben Hall getting the last spot inside the 10. So that's as it sat there. What happened in Super 3? That's the interesting one for me, and it is Adam Kerrison who gets that job done. What a great strategy that was, to go the hard tyre and rein in and pass Matt Cecil for a Super 3 win. So Super 3 for Cecil finishes in 2nd, 19th outright for him. and then third place in Super 3 goes to Cracker, or Michael McDonald as he is known in real life. But the big news here, after a sprint finish and 2 laps past the scheduled distance, it is 300 magnificent championship points for Ryan Smith, and that will push him quite substantially up the running order into the championship. So coming into the night, he was 7th in the championship, and he was he was just under 300 points behind Ethan Knight. So his championship gets a bit of a shot in the arm. Still trails Knight by a good bunch of points, but he pulls a lot further away from his next rival in the championship, Darren Lognan, who's in 8th.
Yeah, that second stint from Smith was magnificent. He managed to somehow make some position in the pit stop and just used it. So fantastic drive from him.
No, I agree. Who else has stand out for you tonight? I think, Darryl Callaghan for me is a good drive for all of that happened there. Big mistake, though. I think the big one that we all looked at there was Damon McDonald. That entry into the pits was very, very costly.
Yeah, that sucked for him. He also had, Kiddis had that pop tyre, which was a weird one. Everyone else in the top 10, they only made like 1 or 2 spots or lost 1 or 2 spots. It really, like Speckles made 4, which is probably the only big mover and shaker in the top 10. And everyone else sort of just fell out of it if there was any big movements. Everyone doing a burnout, customary burnout to finish the race.
Yep, everybody having a little bit of fun, letting off a little bit of steam, because for the development series field, there's actually a fair old way to go between races. Now, I mean, a lot of drivers are going to be sitting there and looking forward to the Sandown 500 in a couple of weeks' time as well. So they're going to sort of park those cars. But aside from that, the next time that we actually see the development series field is going to be it's got a fair old way to go, actually. When we look at the calendar, the next round for them is Bathurst, which is October the 4th, so it's a full month away. There's a long way to go. But again, going to be a 125 kilometre race and top 10 shootout there, so plenty of time to wait for them. But what's going to happen between now and then is there's going to be the Sandown 500 in 2 weeks' time, and then from there there's going to be another 2 or 3 week wait till that particular race in the series. But
and if you think about it, this race was probably one of the longest ones some of these guys have ever done. So everyone should be really proud of the performance. Everyone finished tonight. Really good to see. Absolutely.
Well, everybody finishing tonight, it is a rarity that we get a whole field of cars finish the single race. But as you said, no retirements. A couple of people had some accidents and so on and so forth. But aside from that, all 26 cars started and all 26 cars finished. So that's very, very good to see there. And we've got our top 3 from Super 2 and our Super 3 round winner in the booth with us. So we'll start from the top down. So let's grab Ryan Smith here and have a quick chat. So, Ryan, congratulations. It's another win on the season for you. That takes you to 3 total for the year. Wasn't easy, though. You definitely had a fight on your hands all the way. You had to earn the pass Brandon at the early stages of the race, and then you had to hang on at the end there on several occasions.
Yeah, it was anything but easy. The safety car coming out at the end I wasn't too happy with it. But yeah, worked it out at the end anyway and made the tyres get there. Had a slight lock up into turn 1 after the safety car though, and that scared me.
Yeah, I'd imagine so, because you did have a healthy margin when Brandon had his unfortunate, what we're hearing is a hardware issue going into turn number 1, which gave you a pretty healthy margin. And at that stage, you looked like you'd backed a winner and you were home and hosed. And then the safety car, took it all away. And after going the whole entire distance of the race, virtually, clean as a whistle, it set up a little bit of a late finish that you probably wouldn't have. Yeah, no driver wants to go through a 1-lap dash and worry about what possibly could happen over the next, minute and 20 seconds of a lap around Sandown.
Yeah, it was quite nerve-wracking. I don't know. I was shaking as I crossed the line. Very excited to be back in Big Lane Victory Dane. But yeah, it was a very tough race.
Yep, I imagine so. And I guess they don't come any tougher than Sandown, but they don't come any tougher than 2 weeks' time as well, because you're going to be gearing up for the Enduro Cup along with another couple of drivers. Who are you paired with this year?
I'm with Dane this year for Enduro Cup.
And Dane, who paired with I think with Hayden Cupid last year as well, and they were actually looking pretty handy until a couple of game glitches I think sort of took them out of the running. So he knows how to get around here, and I actually am looking forward. Will, I think you'll agree that's actually not a bad pairing to have around here. Two guys that are very, very quick and definitely know how to pilot a car around Sandown. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, and two drivers that are actually in form at the moment, so it'd be great to see.
Yeah, Dane coming off a couple of a little bit of a sabbatical as well, so he'll be looking forward to getting back into the saddle and gearing up and piloting the car again. So, but congratulations on your win there, Ryan. Adding to your tally for the year. Not a huge factor in championship contention this year, but you're keeping yourself firmly entrenched in the top 10 and keeping that scoreboard ticking over. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. Just trying to go for all the wins I can for the rest of the year, because championship's kind of out of the picture now.
Yep, certainly is. But you keep going on, keep that team scoreboard ticking over as well. So you've done well tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, second place man, Brandon Dostal is the next man we'll have a chat to for you, Brandon. It's continuing to bank the championship points. I guess when you can't take the wins, you got to take the positives out of everything. And for you, it's just about putting points on the board. And when I look at your standings this year, I think aside from the one round that you missed, the only times you've only finished outside the top 10 on 2 occasions. So you might not be chalking up the wins, but you're just keeping the points going. You're keeping yourself in the hunt.
Yeah, definitely happy I've been able to keep the pace across a couple of rounds. I've surprised myself a lot. But I'm quite fortunate tonight to finish where I was, as the issues I was having, I literally just lost all control of my car and stuff. I went off in the grass. But good points all round. P2's not too bad. Like I said, I have to be happy with where I finished, because it could have gone a lot worse. But it was a pretty fun battle with Ryan. He definitely deserves a win. It was, very intense.
Talk us through that start, because pole here is on the dirty side of the track. The racing line is on the right-hand side going down the front straight, and it's a very short run to turn number 1. But Anthony Green came from nowhere and swallowed the pair of you up, yourself and your teammate, on the run to turn number 1. Was it just dump the clutch a little bit too aggressively, got a bit too much wheel spin, or what happened there?
Well, there's one thing I'm not really good at, and it's definitely starting. I have more the Summernats type start, if you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony's just an awesome starter. I was hoping to convert from that pole, but it is what it is. I reckon I just dumped the clutch a little bit too early. But
Oh well.
It is what it is.
Well, I guess the important thing, looking forward to the Sandown 500 for you as well, is that you don't necessarily have to be worried too much about your starting, because it is such a long race. So it's not like the shorter distance races we have in ASR, where the starts are key and you want to try and hold your position. You've got plenty of time to play the strategy card across the 500k race. Now you're pairing with your teammate in Ethan Knight in a Camaro, so you're actually switching allegiances from Ford to Camaro or Ford to General Motors for the 500. What are you looking forward to about that in 2 weeks' time?
Just looking forward to getting behind the wheel of a Camaro. Really, they're a very good looking car, look very aggressive, all that stuff, and looking forward to pairing up with Ethan, because he's an absolute god's gift for a teammate. He's the best. But very excited to get out there on the Castrol Liquid Q Racing Camaro and see what we can do.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, the broadcaster is not going to be present for the 500. We might do a couple of highlights packages, but we'll look forward to seeing what you can do. Congratulations on second place.
Thank you.
Well, over to somebody that I don't think we've actually had a chance to talk to about a podium result so far this year. If I go and have a look at the stats, on our next man, he's had one podium all season long, and that came all the way back at Winton at round number 2, which would have been race 2 of Winton, which would have been the reverse grid race when we inverted half the field, and he finished 3rd. So, Hayden Cupid, welcome back to the podium celebrations.
Yeah, great to be back.
Well, talk us through your year, because you've had a bit of an up and down year, and we know that you end up away with work on a number of occasions, and you've come back into the series after a couple of weeks off, and you felt like you didn't sort of have it for a while. You thought you were going to be a little bit slow, but you surprised us when you jumped in and substituted at Long Beach in Supercars, and you've carried that form over into Sandown. What made you think that you weren't going to be fast enough?
I don't even know. I think it's just I didn't believe I could do it, to be honest. I was just trying to get in the 10 for quali so that I could try and make something out of top 10 shootout. I wasn't even expecting third. So third in there and then started fifth. So that was a good start. I was just hoping to finish inside the top 10. That was my goal. Yeah, come home P3. Can't really complain.
Were you getting a little bit worried for a while that Specky might have actually overhauled you in the latter stages, given what the tyre offset was?
Yeah, a little bit, but looking at how many laps were left and with all the lap traffic, I got screwed over by some and then he'd get screwed over by some. So I wasn't really that concerned until the safety car came out and sort of just threw everything up. Like I had a VF, I think it was Wells in front of me. So that was a lapped car and I had Specky breathing down my neck behind me on the safety car restart. So I was a bit scared on the safety car restart, and I know Specky's fighting for a championship, but I'm not gonna make it easy for him when a podium's up for grabs.
Absolutely, man. Look, I would, if I was in your position, I would have said exactly the same thing. You want to fight for those wins, but you also want to fight for the good results when they're on the table, especially when it comes to a podium finish. They don't come around all that often, and in such a competitive field, you take every single one of them you can get. So for you, the next attention for you now moves to the 500 as well. Now, last year you were paired with Dane Liccardo. This year you're paired with your teammate who wasn't here this weekend in Kai Jones.
Yeah. Last year with Dane went really well to start off with. I think we were like 5 laps from the end and blew a motor or something. We were P3. So hopefully Kai and I can do something like that again. I won't have Dane to carry me this year, but we'll see how we go.
Well, I look at the pairing of Haydo and Kai, and I looked at after Haydo had said to me earlier in the last couple of weeks that he didn't feel like he was had the pace. I look at what Kai can do in a car. Kai's had some good results this year, and I'm starting to change my mind. I actually think it's a solid pairing. It's probably a possible pencil them in for a good strong top 6 finish if things go according to plan for them is my tip.
Yeah, I agree. Both those drivers that they get some clean air, they can just churn out the laps, and as you said, they're not slow. So yeah, I expect a good result out of them.
Oh, well, the pressure's on you now, Haydo. So
Oh, I don't like that.
time to go prepare. And again, well done
Yep.
on another podium. Your second for the season.
Thank you.
All right, with the Super 2 runners out of the way, time to have another chat with, we had a chat with all the way back at Winton, I think, Adam Kerrison was the last. We hadn't spoken to you in many, many years by the time we pulled you up for a little chat after round number 1, because you've been away from ASR for such a long period of time. And, well, here we are again, having a chat about a good performance from you once again. Well done.
Yeah, cheers. I didn't actually know that I got the Super 3 win until I got a message from Walshy on the cooldown lap to say, well done. So I did not realise I got it. So, yeah, really, really happy. Brilliant. I actually do like that track. I really like Sandown. It's just, yeah, it flows. I sort of went with a hard, soft strategy and was able just to run. I ran fairly long in the first one. I think I got to about 26 laps in the end. Yeah, and then I just putted around. I was a bit worried when we got the safety car. Like I, again, didn't know where I was in the Super 3, but I just thought, this could end badly. But, yeah, no, good way to end the day, to be honest. I was very happy.
Yeah, not a bad way to end the day at all. Now, Let's talk about that tyre strategy, because we did see a number of drivers were trying to split the soft strategy as best as they possibly could. And in a couple of cases, some drivers had pitted too early and then they were compromised. In one case, a driver actually blew a tyre as a result of it. What inspired your choice to go with the hard tyre to start with and then go with the soft tyre at the end? Because that's quite a bold gamble around a place that's like Sandown, because you need the soft tyre to get a little bit of grip, especially with the drive out of some of the corners. But starting on a full heavy fuel load on a hard tyre and then going to and getting through that phase before you go and put the soft tyre on, that was quite a bold call.
Yeah, I think it's, I'd call it ability or lack thereof. I didn't notice enough time difference in from a hard to a soft for myself.
Okay.
So I thought, well, if I run, I knew I was going to be starting down the back, and I sort of figured like the guys like Rhodey and stuff like that probably would too, so I'd probably be in the same boat. Yeah, I thought I'd do that, and I knew that the couple of practices I did, I was actually getting pretty good fuel consumption out of it, so I figured if I could run, just stay out of trouble and then run as long as I could. Then when I jumped onto the soft, I knew I sort of had a few extra laps up my sleeve with the softs going down. And that, to be honest, especially going into that last lap after the safety car, I felt really comfortable doing that. I was a bit worried, but then when the green light went, I thought, yeah, okay, no, I can. Didn't worry too much about those, a blue flag, but then I think it was Ethan, and I think he was coming, but he spun a little bit, so I was safe there. And then, so it just sort of fell really well, to be honest. So I actually did feel pretty comfortable. Usually with a lot of the other races, I'm umming and ahhing, but yeah, I sort of knew what to do with this one. So yeah.
No, you've driven a very, very good race and very, very smart race. And the strategy that you picked has paid off for you. So for you, congratulations on a second Super 3 round win for the year. Well done.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Surprising. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Very, very good to have you back. Well, it's been our top 3 in Super 2 and our round winner in Super 3, Will. Definitely, yeah, a few surprises there tonight, I think. Even Adam Kerrison seems like he surprised himself with the strategy call that he picked and how he ended up at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think we were both surprised with Kerrison. That second stint, similar to Smith, really worked for him. And yeah, they both got the win out of the second stint.
Yeah, and then they both had to survive the safety car restart as well. I mean, granted, in both cases, there was a little bit of traffic involved that sort of helped, both their causes at the restart there. But, as Ryan rightly pointed out, it's not the situation you want to find yourself in. You don't want to be going into a safety car restart with 1 lap to go, and it's someone throw a Hail Mary at you, and then that's the end of your race type of thing. He would have preferred to have won it by the 2 or 3 second advantage that he had at the in the closing stages of that race. But that's what happens, and unfortunately sometimes you've got to be able to tolerate it. You've got to be able to put it out of your mind and just go back to what your instincts tell you to do. And in both cases for them, they were able to do just that.
Yeah, and in general, I've been really happy with tonight. Saw some really fair racing, and especially all those overtakes we saw into turn 6 previously have been absolute nightmares. And I think everyone we saw, bar one, everyone got through cleanly, and even the one that wasn't clean didn't take anyone out. So it was great to see tonight.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And we'll look forward to the same sort of action when we meet again in 4 weeks' time for the Bathurst 125, which will be round number 11 of the ASR Development Series Championship, when it starts to get rather interesting around the Mount Panorama Motor Racing Circuit. You go from a track tonight where there's plenty of width and plenty of room. If you make a mistake at the mountain, it can be unforgiving. There's no margin for error at plenty of parts of that circuit. We'll see you on October the 4th for round 11. Until next time, please drive safely, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.